welcome back to the final edition of the Change My Mind podcast.
I won't change my mind because I don't have to, because I'm an American.
Yes, you are, and I'm Wesley Sykes. Through the other side of the ether is the Nick to my Wesley. It's Mr. Nicholas J. Esquire, podcast co-host for hire.
Yeah, this is it's been a long while coming, about a little over a month, but man, it is still very strange to be here on our last episode of Changing My Mind.
Well, and that was actually one of the more, obviously, like on the nose. What are those things called?
Analogies?
Analogies. Thank you. I should have known that, but that
You've
was
been doing that.
It's just on the tip of my tongue, I swear. But that was pretty apt on the analogy there, if I do say so myself, because now that you do have, this podcast coming to an end, you may be on the free agent board. Of course, you're one half of the TLDR team, so please continue listening to that. But you could be a podcaster for hire now.
You could as well. You could. I think I'm content with just doing TLDR and then just doing what I have at work, because I every day I never know if they're gonna be like, hey, we want you to do this, like for show stuff or whatever. So which is a good thing. But I think like our Change My Mind and TLDR were like a nice. They went well together, just like was it MCU at Home that you did with Goo for a short while. It all worked well together, so it was kind of nice. But if someone asked me like, "Hey, like if you," I'm not a poker person, but if someone said, "Hey, you want to do a poker podcast?" I think it's a terrible idea. First of all, but second, like I would, it'd be such a like massive shift. Like, no, I'm not a podcast co-host for hire. As much as I appreciate that.
Well, this might be too niche, but you debate the merits of on-screen baseball.
What do you mean by on-screen?
Well, like not on-screen baseball, but like baseball on the silver screen, on the big screen. You debate like the athletic prowess of the actors who are playing the game, much like we did with Summer Catch, which I think was right in your wheelhouse.
Oh wow. That sounds like
that you do for love of the game, Bull Durham, Field of Dreams, Major Leagues.
I hate how much I like that idea.
Bench warmers.
Yeah, I think that would be a lot of fun. The fact that hasn't been done.
What do you say? I actually have a little bit of time opening up next week. So what do you think about that?
Let's just do it.
Yeah. All right. Okay. We're rebranding here.
Oh my God, that was like I do like that idea. Like I would listen to that for sure. I don't know how it would be as a listener. Like I feel like that might be a little bit of a challenge, but at the same time, I think we had a fun time with Summer Catch, so I hope the listeners did.
Of course, and then you field your all-time starting nine of fictional athletes. Then you do a draft. Then you do each year the best sports movie to come out. Maybe after a few hundred episodes you transition to another sport.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That could be a lot of fun, and if you like were well connected to like people across other sports as well, who are able to provide grades and whatnot. Like I have no problem like breaking down basketball, but at the same time, like I would feel like I'm not the person to break down, what goes on in Coach Carter from an athletic standpoint. I could be in the conversation, but not that leading voice.
Or even from like a recruiting standpoint, if you're talking about like Blue Chips or something, or He Got Game, someone who would actually have experience, working with the coaches in the locker room and, with the players, all that kind of stuff too. So, maybe storyboard.
Yeah, that's I like that idea. I do. I think it's actually going way better than my poker sample that that came from.
But I don't know if it's better than this idea right here, because this week it is, as I mentioned, our final episode, and we are continuing to give our all-time top fives for all things related to the podcast, as well as we're going to be conducting an exit survey on the podcast itself. We might have a few former guest stars appear on the podcast throughout. They might be sprinkled in here, so we'll be sure to pull them in once they arrive at their desired time or so. But Nick, we were talking about haircuts before we got started here, and sparked a little something in my noggin. What do you say when you ask for a haircut? Because I feel like that's like a very guy thing of trying to like be as descriptive in as few amount of words as possible. And while still being broad to not really screw yourself.
Yeah, thankfully I've been dealing with the same person for a while, and she's like had to like do like touch-ups here and there, and so like there are times where I may see her 2 weeks at a time because it's a touch-up versus like a full cut again. So she knows I don't need to say anything, but before that, I had been saying like, like take a decent amount off of the sides. I feel like I've used numbers in
Mhm.
10 years or so. But then like off the top, it would be like take like I wouldn't say an inch, but just a little off the top, I think is what I would usually.
Yeah, so when you're descriptive giving like the inches like that, I feel like that's when people can get into trouble. But a little bit is so interpretive that you can be upset if they take a little too much off. But everyone kind of has an idea of what a little bit is. I used to be a 3 on the side, so that used to remember. I used to be, when I had like my hair kind of flicked up in the front there,
Mm.
it was a 3 on the sides and trim and thin the top.
I feel like I did that was about like bounced between 3 and 4 before like I met
Hmm.
current hair person. But yeah, the thing that was tough for me too is like I grew up once I like when I was, I don't know, 10 or something like that. My dad was just always like, we're doing buzz cuts. That's it.
Hmm.
Nice and easy. And my
The
mom was like,
wiffle.
okay. And we just did like 2, I feel like, all the time. So
Hmm.
it was just a thing I never ever thought about. Not until college, quite honestly. It was always short.
Now, you don't strike me as I don't think you're a big rap fan, but did you ever get the lineup, the tape up jobs, on
No,
your hairline right there and
no.
the box?
No, I never I have because I have the widow's peak too, so I kind of always
Hmm.
liked the widow's peak, so I always wanted to,
Oh, you liked it. Some
keep that.
people don't like that.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't know why, I just always did kinda like I never did the lineup across the top,
Big
I never
vampire fan.
yeah, I never did, with, like, sideburns, how you get, like, the thin ones, that kinda
Hmm.
lineup, I
Hmm.
never did that really either.
Yeah, so the sideburns never really grew out for me like that much, but I did do the lineup. I did used to do that. Used to go to a black barbershop in college, and they did a real nice job. It was like a black and Dominican actually, so
Mm.
they had it down there, and that was actually the spot. You could go there and get like buy Jordans, like the latest mixtapes, and then like also get a quick set of like pull ups or dips in because there was like that combo pull up dip machine in there.
Oh,
And,
nice. Wow.
yeah, it was a pretty cool spot. Uh, but yeah, so like once I transitioned to like my longer hair, it's gotten even more convoluted because I want it thin to not have to go back and get a haircut so quickly because it grows back fast.
Mhm.
But then there's like all this other stuff of like sometimes I wear it like 3/4 part, sometimes it's a part down the side and like back. So there's like a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah. No,
So
it's
what
way
I
more
kind of say now, and I don't think this is good for my ego, but I'm like, just give me like the Bradley Cooper. And like that's kind of what I'm going for now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. All right. Hey, as long as it works, then who gives a damn? Like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, it
half the
works sometimes.
battle.
I wear a lot of hats, just because
Oh,
I don't want to put product in my hair all the time.
yeah, that also helps take care of it too. Generally, I used to wear. I
Mhm.
mean, that's what I used to do all the time too. It's just constantly baseball hats. So
Yeah, yeah, it's a good cover up.
yeah, exactly. But now when I have to go in the office and stuff, it's like or on camera stuff. Yeah, so, anyways, yeah.
I know it. I know. The other day I took my hat off and I had like the perfect 3/4 part,
Wow.
and it was just like perfectly like curled back and like in position. I was like, oh man, that's nice. That doesn't
Blessed,
happen.
blessed with perfect hair and calves. Well, some of us are just
Yeah, but the
lucky.
Cavs are going. I got to tell you, one thing I will do, what I'm looking to do to make up for the time that we gain back from this podcast is get back into the gym or some sort of a workout because I have just slowly melted this whole summer.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
So
That's
the Cavs have probably decreased.
that's we need to scrub that from the audio. We'll let our producer know.
Yeah, yeah. Someone like Doc or Mac right now, with their Awaken 180, diets and everything,
Mm,
they may have a more defined shaped calf right now.
they might. That is a fair point. I haven't. I did see Joe after he lost a bunch of that weight. I haven't asked him though.
I didn't check out his calves, but typically that's what I attribute to my nice calves. Is like
Hmm.
one is genetics, but two is being a former fat guy.
Yeah, yeah. I think I feel like we resolved that on this very show here. Like we
Hmm.
figured that out for all of the science and health and fitness and everybody.
Yeah, the bro science episode, which probably should have made the top 5 non-reviews. Now that I think of it, that just popped up into my mind.
Yeah, that one crossed my mind when I was like scanning through it all. That was something else.
Yeah. But like I mentioned, we are going to have some recurring guests come onto the pod, maybe offer some kind words, maybe not some not so kind words. Who knows? But we do have our first guest, and it's our former resident guy in the chair, as well as paranormal expert, Mr. Tim Weisberg.
What's up, dude?
What's going on, guys? Nick, I think you recognize where I am.
I was going to say that better not be.
Bastard. Well, I saw you waiting backstage and I was like, what is this background? I had no freaking clue. Oh, wow. I hate you so much. For those who don't know at home, why don't you tell people a little bit about the redheaded hitchhiker from, is it Route 144?
Route 44, yeah, the redheaded hitchhiker of Route 44. And this is where he hangs out, the Sea Conquer Hobith line. And I figured if anything would get you, it would be that photo right there.
Yeah, man. Oh God, Tim told me this story at least 3 times when we would drive to Patriots games together, and I swear to God, like it was. You told I never went on that road, but I would have to go into Seacon for like WPRI stuff, and then just driving late at night or whatever, I'd get rattled after hearing that story. I fucking hate being reminded of that story. So thank you for that. It's good to see you, buddy.
I mean, it's good to see you too. It's not nearly as desolate as it used to be back when the hitchhiker roamed that street. So it's a little less likely you'll run into him, but I can't say it's impossible that you will.
God, I haven't been there yet, and I really hope that never happens.
Well, Tim, I'm going to butter you up here before you maybe offer up any insults here. You are looking like a square-jawed, handsome man. Speaking of losing weight, we're talking with Doc and Mac. You look fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, about almost 100 pounds down.
Almost 100. Wow, no kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, dude.
Good for you. That's awesome. That's amazing stuff.
Yeah, jeez, man. Look
Ask
at you.
your doctor if Mounjaro was right for you. Because it was definitely right for me.
I was going to say, did you cut out the mukbangs?
No, those I still do those, but I just eat a giant salad for 2 hours of shoving lettuce in my mouth.
God, it is wild to think where we were when this all started. Wes and I have been kind of reflecting back on it, but Tim, like now you're like hosting like Drive Time, the morning show over on WBSM. Like it's just crazy. Like looking back on it, us three talking about mukbang stuff like idiots on this show, and now like you're handling with like all the very sophisticated people of the South Coast first thing in the morning every day.
Ironically, I almost talked about mukbangs this morning.
Oh,
because there was a story from CNN about the popularity of mukbang videos. So I almost brought that up on the air because one of my callers brought it up last week.
Well,
so one of my callers like, do you watch these mukbang videos? I was like, I'm familiar.
Now, are they? I thought they kind of like had fizzled out of the I don't know, like internet popularity like a few years ago. They still have popularity to it, or is it like, look at the meal that I cook for my blue collar husband, and it's just like all sodium frozen food that they're pouring oil over?
From what I understand, it is hugely popular on TikTok. And so the people who make those videos, they make them so that people will send them money. Like, here, buy your next giant meal on me. But when you've got 10,000 people buying you a meal, you don't need to spend it all on food, and you can make a little living for yourself. So I guess it's working out for people.
Yeah, hey, all the more power to them. That's interesting stuff. Have you seen those other videos though, where it's like a housewife from the Midwest is like making their lunch or dinner for their husband who works like a 12-hour shift or something like that? It's very depressing.
The only thing worse than that are those videos that like they show up on Facebook now where they're like 18 minutes long, and it's like, watch as I make this casserole for my family. And the person's like putting like McDonald's double cheeseburgers and and like a layer of fries and a layer of like, you have to fast forward it, and like 22 minutes later they're still piling stuff on. And they're like, it's cheap, it's affordable. I'm like, that just cost you $800 to make that casserole.
Yeah. I think it's called Chef Reactions. There's a guy who like kind of does like a mocking play-by-play over those, which I really enjoy. I usually stop out of my way to watch those.
I mean, if you guys are going to be retiring from this show, I think you should use that extra time to start creating your own like mukbang videos.
Oh God.
Food ASMR videos of you chewing food.
Oh, God.
I like that.
I have no problem with ASMR, but I'll tell you right now, mine is absolutely not friggin' chewing food. No way, man. That kills me. When I hear someone chewing with their mouth open, makes my stomach go.
I'll
Absolutely.
snack in bed, and then my wife will give me a look when I'm like crunching too loud. She's like, "I can hear you chewing," and it just kind of she can't get her mind off of it. And then it happened even worse so when I was having yogurt one night in bed, and she's like, "I can hear you like chewing the yogurt through your mouth and having it work through it." So she wasn't. I probably wasn't the most attractive to her at that point in time.
You chew yogurt, man.
Not sure, but it's like
I
you
get you.
kind of like work it through your mouth. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Nick's got it.
Maybe
Yeah.
I should do this. Maybe
You're
I'm wrong.
natural.
This begs the question, Nick. What ASMR do you like? Is it like the sound of comic book pages turning? Is that
No, it's like softer voices. Not like too soft though. It can't like it's weird. Like this is an odd way to put it, but I think this is what it is. Like how when people get corporate speaky where they get like kind of a monotone like that, but like dialed down the volume a smidge. I think that's what like I find calming. It's strange, but I think all of ASMR is a little odd, right?
So
It
you
is,
like
but
executive
that's fine.
corporate communication jargon speech? Is that what you like? That
Not-
would really
not-
calmed you down?
Not the actual, more so the tone of voice is what I mean by that. Not
Oh,
the
so it's like a PowerPoint presentation, just
Yeah.
kind of playing back.
Yeah, no, not the actual like dialogue. And also like I do watch like Bob Ross every once in a freaking blue
Sure.
movie too. So I mean like that I
Happy
feel
little
like
trees.
his voice is probably I would say is that. I that's how I define it. Maybe that's
Okay.
a better way to
yeah, no, it's the original ASMR for sure.
yeah.
Mhm.
So it's those videos, man. I don't know if did we do an episode on that, Wes? I know that came out on Netflix, that whole docuseries.
Oh no, I haven't. I didn't even watch it, but I do know what you're talking about. Though.
Crazy. Did you see that, Tim?
I did not. I've seen it show up in the menu, but I just haven't watched it yet.
It's pretty crazy. I mean, just like seeing now, like now I almost feel guilty when I watch them just because it's like it's his own family doesn't have any of the rights to it or anything. It's like these people who kind of came in later and I highly recommend it on, I don't know if there's one on Hulu, but I know the one I watched is on Netflix. There may have been two that came out, but highly recommend it. But anyways, like this is why we miss you because we get so fucking
we just get deep
go
into the
off on tangents,
conversation
yeah.
there. Yeah, absolutely. But Tim has been here. I mean, he was here at the very birth of this podcast when the idea was laid out in the Patriots media dining area for what was it? Was it the New England Patriots versus San Diego Los Angeles Charger
Ooh, that might
playoff
be
game?
right.
Oh,
That might be
Yeah.
right. Wow.
Divisional
that
round
might be.
playoff game? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good call. And Tim, like, we always refer to him as our guy in the chair, but like he was helping us out. Like Tim had been in the podcasting game for a long time,
Mhm.
in radio game for a long time. Like specifically, on the paranormal side, but obviously always doing news. And then you were doing sports over at the Standard Times. So it was like you were helping us out so much, and to like. It's so wild to think like what you've done yourself as you kind of had to branch away from us, and then seeing where we've gone and how the show's evolved over time, and then now Wes and I have gone on and do other things as well, like podcasting and other media stuff. So like I hope you know that I'm very grateful for everything you did for us very early on.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. But I knew you guys were a show waiting to happen when I heard your conversation. So I was like, this is the show. And it's very rare that a podcast works when it's the personalities that drive it. Because so many people are like, oh, me and my friends were so funny together. We should do a podcast. Everybody would listen. But you have the topics, but you also have the personalities, and you also have the, there's enough agreement sometimes, and there's enough conflict sometimes that it keeps people interested.
Yeah, we definitely had like a healthy mix of those along the way. I'm very grateful for all of that, Tim. And it's just yeah, sorry, I'm going through a lot of emotions with this like day coming to it, this whole thing coming to an end.
Well, I mean, think about this too. When you started it was like before this big podcast boom that happened during the pandemic. Really,
Just
like
before,
that.
yeah.
That's what really pushed this out, so that everybody does a show. But before that, people didn't have the content to be content creators, and you guys did. So I think that one of the things that's really kind of stood out to me about this show over the years is that people have already, like, they know who they're going to side with already on things. Like they're watching something, they're reading something, and they're saying, I know exactly what Nick's going to say about this. I know exactly what Wes is going to say about it. And so that's something that is rare for some of these shows to be able to develop, where your audience gets to know you and care about your opinions on things. Normally it's like they watch these things to hate watch there, to tell you shut the fuck up. But in this particular case,
they probably
you've
do that
been able
too,
to,
though.
A little bit, but I think you've endeared yourself to people.
Well, I appreciate that. And much like Nick said, we got our start with the idea was birthed in that Patriots media dining room. But you also offered up the WBSM studios and fully embraced that guy in the chair role, kind of being the executive producer for us for a little bit there. And we talked about this in last week, going back to our like top 5 of all things related to the podcast. And one of them were, non-movie or TV review episodes. And the top 2 on my list, maybe out of 3 there, were the interviews with you and Christopher Balzano, which you facilitated with hooking us up with during our hashtag spooky season. Those are episodes 86 and 88, I believe, as a crow flies. So if you do want to go back, we'll keep the archives up there for everyone. But those were some of my favorite episodes. I'm a big fan of the paranormal, as you know, Tim. What is brewing? Like, is there anything new that's brewing in the paranormal world that's like kind of got your attention at this point?
There's some real drama going on right now with
Love a good drama, yeah.
With the Conjuring House. The owner of the Conjuring House is apparently having a mental health episode and has taken to attacking former employees that had to quit because they were scared of her. And now she's gotten into a war of words with the star of Ghost Hunters. And just today, she took down the Facebook page after yesterday putting up a post saying that she's in love with Elizabeth Hurley, and Elizabeth Hurley is her twin flame, and they're supposed to be together. But the people who, good choice, yeah. But the people who worked at the Conjuring House are trying to keep them apart, and she called for the public execution of anybody that stands in their way. So no surprise that the Facebook page was taken down today. I think they finally realized that Facebook realized that she's a danger here. So that's the big story these days.
Now, is the assumption that she's been possessed by the Conjuring House?
Some people like to put that out there, but it sounds like this is a case of somebody who had some issues beforehand, and maybe the isolation of being there all the time alone might not help. But I think that she's, I don't like to blame things on the paranormal for people's issues. I just like to blame like every little noise that happens on the paranormal. Oh, it must be a ghost. Yeah. But I think it's sometimes it's too easy to give people an out for their behavior by blaming a ghost or a demon for it.
Dude, so
it's pretty convenient.
Yeah, it is, and that's like I have you guys kind of put Spooky South Coast on pause, right? Am I mistaken?
Yeah, we've been on hiatus. I'm probably gonna bring it back like in the next month or so.
Okay,
but because I'll have like October things I want to promote, but. I ended up, as you know, I was at your wedding and I had to go home.
Yeah,
I have kidney stones. I find out I just left right from the wedding, went right to the hospital, and they told me, yeah, you have kidney stones. And they're like, we're going to take them out. We're going to have you stay here and we're going to give you surgery. And while they were there, they found a mass on my kidney and it turned out to be cancer. So I had to have a kidney removed. And so it's been kind of an ongoing thing. I think now it's more a matter of, I don't want to be awake at 10 o'clock on a Saturday night anymore. I'm getting old. So we might be changing things around, taping it ahead of time or things like that, or moving the time back. But yeah, we'll bring it back.
Well, I mean, I don't, even without the like life and death experience that you had at my wedding, which was nothing to do with anything specific at my wedding. I just want everybody to know we didn't poison.
Yes, no.
Did you sign the waiver before you entered the?
I did, but I knew I was in trouble when I'm sitting there and I'm eating this delicious food. And it was really good. And I'm like eating this food and I'm like, oh man, I don't feel well. I don't think I can have seconds. So that's when I know I was in trouble.
Oh man. Now that's a pretty good way to know. But one thing I wanted to share with you, I've been meaning to tell you this. So after my wedding, I had a slew of weddings that I ended up having to go to. And one was in Buffalo, New York. And it was at like this really old building. And the hotel was particularly old. And I had this moment in there. I feel like I've told you this story, Wes, but like I had a tough time sleeping. And I feel like this place has been around since like the mid 1800s, maybe early. And I have this like in my mind's eye, I have this like vision of this woman, like older. You can't see her face, but seems like in build a little bit old, in like very much like all white, and her hair is just like completely covering her face, like full.
I remember this.
Style. Yeah. Okay. And then like she just like the way the room was set up, there was like a window like barring like the entrance of the bedroom and the actual bed and a wall. So it was strange. But anyways, I could see her, like I couldn't see her walking. It appeared like she was floating. And then through that doorway I ended up like shutting my eyes because I was like, nope, I'm not. I had my eyes open the whole time this is happening. I could see her head starting to come around the corner right before I closed my eyes. Again, like very much felt like it was in my mind's eye, my imagination playing tricks on me. But it was the weirdest fucking experience I've ever had in my life, and the closest thing to like a paranormal type thing that I'd ever had.
Well, did she know that you were there? Did she acknowledge you at all, or did she just keep doing what she was doing?
Nope, I didn't open my eyes up again after that, Tim.
Because it could just very well be, because a place like that's going to have so much residual energy. You could have just caught a glimpse of what we call a replay haunting, a residual haunting. So it's just something that's going to happen. It's like the people that say, "Oh, if you sit in my living room every night at midnight, you'll see a Civil War soldier walk through the room." It doesn't mean that your house is haunted. It just means that there's this residual energy that's just playing out over and over again. So it might have been nothing more than that.
Okay, that's good to know.
And I feel like Buffalo feels like a spooky setting. Like I feel like it used to be a very prominent city, kind of like a Rust Belt, lake, Great Lake area city that kind of like fell to the wayside. I remember I've seen like some of their, I don't know if it's a bank or their town hall or city hall, but it's like this huge building that looks like
the old train station. Yeah.
That's what, yeah. And it's like this great, like Gothic architecture there. And then apparently, the cities kind of fell to the wayside. But I think even a little further east, when you get to like the Finger Lakes region, I hear that that's also like a very spooky area. So like upstate New York, I feel like there's a lot of weird things going on up there.
Definitely. It was called the Burnt Over District. And that's where there's a lot of the, I believe it's the Seneca Indians, the Iroquois Nation. They had a lot of presence up there, and that's where the birth of spiritualism was. Hydesville, New York. That's where the Fox sisters first started communicating with something, and getting those knocks on the wall. And about an hour south of Buffalo, maybe about 45 minutes south of Buffalo, is Lilydale, which is the largest spiritualist town in America. So it's one giant town with nothing but mediums that live there, and you have to actually take a test to prove that you're a talented medium to be able to live and work in Lilydale. So it's a place that has a lot of spiritual energy. And when I went out to Lilydale, I said, this is a place that I want to come back to. And I've never been back there since. So
whoa,
we should all go together sometime. Guys trip. We're going to Lilydale and Buffalo.
Well, I don't know if I talked to you about this, Tim, or not, but I went to, oh no, I did. I remember texting you. You gave me a good name for a Reiki person there, or I think there was like a mutual connection between our medium and this Reiki person who was in like Mattapoisett area, Fairhaven. But yeah, I had, and this lady, as soon as I walked in, she's like, "You have very weird energy. There's something about you." And as soon as I walked in, I'm like, "Oh, I don't even know what to expect here." But she said, "I've healer energy that I take on a lot of people's shit, apparently."
Oh.
Well, I mean, you were a sports writer for many years, so that's pretty much what we do.
It'll
But
take
no,
on
you
a
could
lot of
actually,
abuse.
you could train yourself to be that. You could really study that. My friend Stephanie trains people in that, and she turns them into Reiki masters. So you could
really?
learn
I
how
think
to
that
do
was
that
her name,
stuff
actually,
yourself.
Stephanie. Yeah. I think that's the
That's
same
probably
one.
who I sent you to. That's
Yeah.
the only person I recommend to anybody.
Stephanie, who is also the medium who has her own show now and everything too.
Yeah, they have a show on Fox Nation called Secrets of the Asylum, where her and her boyfriend Scott investigated the Eloise Asylum out in Detroit. And after the show aired last year, we did an event out there. So I got to go out there with them to this giant abandoned asylum. And the place is just amazing. But the best part about that trip was we went to a restaurant called the Black Rock Grill, where they bring you out this hot stone and your steak raw, and you cook the steak on the stone yourself. It can't be legal how they do, because like this thing's like 400 degrees, and they're like, "Here, just cook your steak on the table." And you got like kids running around, like, "Mom, let me get that." But anyway, so it was worth being in a haunted asylum for that steak.
Did they get a second season? Because I tried to find it when I first heard about it on and I just ran into issues with it because it's another streaming service. But did they get a second season?
They did not get a second season yet. They're waiting to hear for it. Part of the problem is Stephanie got pregnant. So right now they're expecting a baby, actually sometime next month. So then maybe once the baby comes, then they'll find out about a renewal.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. That'll do it. But on the note of like all this spooky stuff too, like I've always found it interesting, but it's always scared the shit out of me. Now I feel like I've somewhat gotten over it, but again, like there's still some stuff that scares the piss out of me, like where I can't sleep well at night. But you were the person who also, like, this was way before I changed my mind too. You introduced me to the idea of like energy within like the occult, because I always looked at it as like spirits that didn't cross over or whatever, like something along those lines. And I'm not saying that that's still not where I like generally believe in that sort of thing, but I very much am an energy type person as well. And like your explanation of it, I still think about that from years ago, because again, it's like you're someone who's like all in on this and have learned so much and uncovered as much as you have. And it's just a way of looking at it that I never would have thought about it like that. These ghosts are all like, or spirits, I should say, are all like forms of energy that have taken shape for various reasons.
Yeah, sometimes ones that we've created ourselves. Sometimes it's, like I said, leftover energy that we've expelled somewhere. There's a lot of different possibilities for what they are, and I think none of them and all of them are correct. So it could be that everything is kind of the same idea. It could be that each idea of what a ghost might be is right depending on the situation. So
yeah, I think one of those things, and now that we're having this conversation, my mind is kind of jogged. And I don't know if this was in reference to a specific instance of a ghost or just how generally explaining ghost phenomenon, but it was like almost like a time displacement thing. So they might be witnessing us as ghosts when they were still alive, and vice versa. And that there's like some sort of like a time glitch. Does that ring a bell?
Yep. We
Could you
call
explain
it
it better?
the time slip phenomenon, where sometimes you're walking back, you're walking through an area and you slip back into a different time. So this happens a lot when people go, oh, I went to this house and it looked like it was from the 1800s. But then when I went back the second time, it looked like it was, more modernized. Well, because you might have slipped back into time into the 1800s, which sounds weird. But when you think about it, we've all experienced the time slip, deja vu. That's a time slip. We've all gone through it in just a little minute version of it. Another possibility, too, is that the more heavy you get into the idea of quantum mechanics and the idea of a multiverse, not the Marvel multiverse, certainly not the DC multiverse, but when we're talking about the idea of there being a parallel dimension. And what it is, I always break it down like this. When you woke up this morning, you made a decision if you were going to have eggs for breakfast or if you were going to have cereal. And maybe you had cereal and that brings you to where you are today. But there's another reality where you had eggs. And maybe in that reality, you went through the exact same day. Maybe you ended up deciding to run for president of the United States. It could be an entirely different set of circumstances. But just I say every eventuality is a reality. So every choice that you could possibly make, there is another version of this universe where you made that choice. And that means that you might be existing in more than one universe. Hey, I saw you the other day at the mall. No, I wasn't at the mall. I swear to God, it was you. Well, maybe it was. And maybe in that moment, one other universe was bumping into our universe.
I love that. I was just reading this thing on Twitter. Maybe some people refer to it as X, but it kind of blew my mind. It was a little bit of like a high moment for me here, but it was like, every person's memory has a version of yourself that's different from how you view yourself. So there's like thousands of views. Like how my parents view me is different from how I view me, which is different from how my neighbors view me, which is different from how my friends view me, which is different from someone who I locked eyes with walking down, the mall or something. And none of them are the whole picture. Right. But they're all completely different versions of yourself. So it's like not exactly what you were saying, but it's like very different or very similar, I think, in some ways.
Well, and when you think about it, maybe your parents are thinking about, gee, I wonder what Wes is doing right now. And in their mind, you're doing something different than what you are right now. Or maybe that person you just saw briefly is like, I wonder what that guy's story is all about. And then so they're creating an identity for you and they're creating something else. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's actually what we call a tulpa or a thought form or an egregore, where you're actually creating this entity by putting that thought out there. And that's, somewhat pseudoscientifically proven, because in the 70s, the Toronto Society for Psychical Research did what they called the Philip experiments, where they created this character named Philip. They made him up completely, and then they held seances, and they were able to communicate with him. And the spirit that they created, kind of solidified everything that they had said. He backed it all up with what the story was that they made up. Now, is that them just manipulating the seance materials with their own minds, or did they actually create this being and will it into being? And I think that could be what's happening when people are thinking of you and thinking about you and creating a different version of you. who's to say that you doesn't exist somewhere?
Yeah, it's crazy to think about that. I had to like stop and I just kind of like stopped my work for a few minutes and just like focused on that. I was like, man, that is some crazy stuff going on there. So
That's
that was my high philosophical thought of the day.
Yeah, geez. Wow.
Emphasis on the high, because that's
Yeah, man.
I think that's pretty philosophical there. Don't sell that short.
It is.
It is. Well, I mean, just because I've like you just talk about it with other people about like you can't worry about other people, like what other people think of you, especially because they have their own version of you in their mind. But I've never thought about it on such a, I guess, a macro kind of level. You just think about it with like individuals or like this nebulous they. Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this entire conversation just to like wrap my head fully around all of that, because that's like total mindfuck. And again, like this is why I missed him. Like he like just you two can start going, and I turn into the fucking listener, and I'm very happy with that because I enjoy hearing you two just talk.
When you go back and hear it the second time, you're gonna be like, this guy's fucking crazy. Why did I ever listen to him?
Yeah, nobody else can do it twice, just me. I don't want nobody else do it.
Well, that's what it's like, you when you're like drunk or in an altered state, you're like, I think I got this great idea. I got this funny joke. And then you come back to it in the morning and it's like, this is fucking bullshit. What was I thinking?
Oh God.
Also, who'd I steal that joke from? Because I didn't come up with it.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Oh man.
Tim, I really appreciate it. We are going to move forward with the show. Is there any last parting words that you like to say? One final time. I changed my mind.
I just have one question for you guys. First of all, how many episodes now altogether?
284 officially, probably like 290 though. We had some bonus episodes, things like that. So, but 284 officially.
And with all of those episodes, has either of you ever changed the other one's mind? Because I've never heard it.
Quite a few times, actually. Most recently, it was Nick on our conversation about what is a side character. What's the definition of a side character?
Yes, that was.
See, what I've heard is not anybody's mind being changed. What I normally hear is somebody just agreeing with the other person so he can move on. Which was the original title of the show, but it wasn't as catchy.
You're giving too much of a peek behind the curtain here. You're giving away all our trade secrets now. But it was that one, and then I also have come around on not wanting to be spoiled on things, which was the whole impetus of the episode 1 right there.
The first episode, finally. It took long.
Full circle. Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's actually why the show is ending, everybody. We couldn't live with that
yeah,
idea.
we finally agree. There's nothing to argue on anymore.
But yeah, Tim, again, thank you so much, man. Thanks for taking the time tonight to just circle back with us and everything and look back. It's always fun chatting with you, man. And I miss having you on. Obviously, I'm going to miss the show, but it's great to be able to do this one more time with you too.
Absolutely. I love you guys, and I'm so proud of what you've been able to do and what you moved on to. And this is the end of one thing, but it's just going to be the beginning of so much more. So good luck with everything, and see you soon.
Love you, brother.
Love you, man. Thanks so much.
Oh man, dude, having Tim on is just like the way it turns back the clock. It's just like seriously, it's like he never left. I mean, this is all Tim's a professional. Like Tim,
of course.
Like you and I have done on-air stuff outside of this show as well, but like Tim's been doing it like far longer than either of us, and now he's doing like a morning show on WBSM and everything, and it's just like the man can talk about anything, and the things that he really knows how to talk about, though, he knows his shit.
But that's what I find so impressive about it. It's like we didn't have any questions lined up, or he didn't really know what we were going to talk about, and we're just throwing this shit at him, and he is like immediately right on board and has something. Something worth listening to too. It's not just a response. It's like it's got something behind it, a little substance.
Exactly, and that's why, like, seriously, like, when I think about like how I like loved having him on the show with us, Tim very much didn't want to get in the way. Like, he wanted to make the show about us, which I appreciated. Like that was the thing to do. But there were times like I wanted to get him in because I wanted to hear what he had to say. And then when you two go back and forth too, like it would like I just felt like it was always interesting conversation as well. So I just like I became a listener, and I really actually did enjoy that part of the show. He
is if nothing else, a masterful conversationalist, but he's so much more than that. We know that.
Yeah, absolutely. He's a man. Oh man. All right. So I know we got other people that are coming on. Is it time for me to do the dance one last time?
One final time for the comic book minute.
A superb choice.
So we got a good week to end on for Nick's Comic Book Minute. X-Men issue 3 is out this week, as is Aliens versus Avengers, which, if you're wondering, is it like the aliens from like the movie that they just did another reboot of? Yes, it is those aliens facing off with the Avengers. We also got the first issue of the Phases of the Moon Knight, which it looks like we're going to be getting turning back the clock a little bit, because Moon Knight, Mark Spector, is not the only Moon Knight, and that is not talking about his mental condition that he has. That is actually talking about like other Moon Knights over the course of time, the other Fists of Khonshu. So very excited to check that one out. I think it's going to be an anthology series. Like this issue will be a whole story. Next issue will be a whole story, like in and of itself, self-contained. DC, we got John Constantine, Hellblazer, Dead in America, issue 8. So I'm always excited whenever we get more Constantine. May talk about
you get a Moon Knight and a Constantine comic in your final comic book minute here. This is great.
Yeah, we may talk about those two guys a little bit later on as we go through our final few top fives. From Image, we got Universal Monsters Frankenstein. If you like comics and you like the Universal monsters, like the classics, like Dracula, Creature of the Black Lagoon, Frankenstein, definitely want to check these out. I have not read these, but Joe has, and he has raved about them, so I know he's going to be checking out the Frankenstein one as well. And then Rogue Sun issue 21, a book that we've talked about on the show a ton, as is Something is Killing the Children, which is out from Boom this week, the 40th issue of that. It's been one of the best ongoing books for quite some time now. I think it started in the pandemic, so kind of maybe a little bit younger than our show. As is TLDR, which was a spinoff out of Change My Mind. This week on TLDR, we have another What's New plan, because we already had audio drop of the creators of The Last Wardens, a conversation with them. That is out. That's from Mad Cave Studios. And we got another chat coming up next week as well with the writer of When the Blood Has Dried, which is a fantasy comic, again, from Mad Cave Studios. But that's another thing too. Like, this is the TLDR, as you mentioned, like I'm going on continuing doing that. And that was like, I started that with Joe. That was born in the pandemic. And it's like, it was originally hosted on Change My Mind. In fact, there's a couple interviews I think that are still on Change My Mind there. The first one was Scott Snyder. And now Joe and I will be continuing doing that on our own. And I think actually we have a little something from the good doctor.
Oh, hello. Doc here. And I'm coming to you guys tonight because I couldn't be there for your live send-off for Change My Mind. A very bittersweet day. You guys have been rock and rolling, doing this for a long time, and I remember back to when I first met you two lads. I believe it was either the first or one of the early Dork live shows at Idle Hands, and I remember bumping into a man with some really strong calves, and another man with the weakest handshake I have ever shaked. And I get now why you could never top out at 88 at Northwestern. That made sense then. It makes even more sense now. But I'm proud of both of you guys. You've had a hell of a run. It's been a hell of a program. And I'm very thankful and very blessed to have been a part of it in some extremely small capacity. I have really enjoyed getting to know both of you over these last several years. I continue to look forward to, our friendship and seeing families grow, playing more golf with Wes, and watching TLDR grow, together. It's gone to some great heights, Nicholas, and we'll take it to some more. But for now, enjoy what should be a wonderful night of people shitting on you. Hopefully light on the compliments, because you both need to be knocked down a peg. But in all seriousness, guys, I love you both, and I hate to see the show come to an end. It's been really enjoyable, but I know there are great things in both of your horizons going forward. So with that said, I will sign off. I will stop taking up everyone's precious time, although I know that what I say is probably the most heartfelt out of everything. And so yeah, until next time, baby, keep it sexy. Woo.
Well, there you have it there. Thank you very much to the good doctor. Although if you couldn't tell by the tone, we're not dying. He sounded very somber there. We're just not doing the podcast anymore, guys. That's it. So don't be confused by anything.
Oh my god. Yeah. We're doing all right. Oh man. Yeah, just
Healthy as an ox over here.
yeah. Well, he was complimenting you all up and down, and you and your calves and everything. I apparently have the weakest handshake on the Northeast.
Is that a thing? Or is this just come out of left field here?
Everything comes out of left field with him when it comes to him insulting me. Like I don't know if Joe knows what I topped out at in college. So he pulled 88 out of his ass. I don't know if he just whatever. But yeah, I appreciate Joe taking the time. He's I think he's busy golfing right now because he loves his Top Golf. Or whatever.
Of course. Well, that's not really golfing then, though, right? That's
no, I wouldn't say so. But
yeah,
I also who am I to say?
I'm just saying, not to split hairs here, but thank you very much to the good doctor. And then also, keep following along with Nick and Doc's TLDR if you're not already. Of course, it's like a sister program of the Change My Mind podcast, who's now going to be an only child. But all the more reason. Anyone who from this podcast who was listening here that wasn't listening to TLDR, migrate on over. You're going to have half as many laughs as you have here, at least.
Yeah, if we can do that, I'd be stunned, quite honestly. But yeah, I appreciate that. And we're not dying, but the show is dying, so it is a bit of a sad day. And it's time for us to officially start this exit survey and go through. We still got some top fives to work through. You have put together your last round of exit survey questions, so where do you want us to start, sir?
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much a straight lift from the previous exit survey. So some of the staple questions that appear in every exit survey. But what do you think will age the best from this podcast?
I think, honestly, I can get really specific here. As long as we're leaving our stuff, as long as we're getting our stuff up, that Deadpool episode that we have, that's like probably the most viewed episode across the DSG on YouTube.
Analytically speaking, you are correct. Yeah.
Yeah. But honestly, I think that if people stumble upon us and they go and listen back, I really do think that our original versus sequel episodes are the ones that people are going to look at and be like, oh, wow, this was a fun idea. And maybe that leads to them finding other podcasts if they do stuff like this. I don't know. But I think that was we've talked about it before. That was a really good idea that we stumbled upon. Rossi gave us a nudge and we kept incorporating it for the remainder of the show's life.
Yeah, and that's so much has been made about copywriting novel ideas. If you follow along in the internet universe, is Walking Bets something that you can trademark or not? Well, exit survey is not really an original idea. That's just something I always that I took from the Rewatchables podcast on the Ringer.
Oh,
they have all these they do rewatchables and they have all these categories here. So that was some of the things that I just wanted to incorporate because I enjoyed listening to it so much that I wanted to do it. But the original versus sequel, I think that is an original idea. I haven't seen that floating around. I haven't really sought it out all that much. But I haven't seen anything that I consume that kind of delves into original versus sequel, reboots, prequels, whatever the case is. So
we talked about the assessing the athletic prowess of individuals in sports movies. I think with that's a fun idea. That would be an extremely limited idea in terms of amount of episodes you could do. It'd have only so long of a run. But original versus sequel, again, there is probably a cap on how long it can go. Probably a significantly longer than the previous idea we mentioned.
Sure. Well, with no one coming up with original ideas anyway,
right.
nowadays. So it's just going to keep feeding you new stuff.
Yes, very true. But we even did sequel versus sequel sometimes if we thought it was appropriate. But yeah, I think that would be on its own. That could be a podcast idea in and of itself. Just that's all they do on the show.
I agree. And I think that's probably after getting into this and doing again, close to 300 episodes, that would probably be the way to go. If either of us were to start a podcast again, it would be hyper niche.
Yeah. Cause it's
because if we're just going to be talking about pop culture or whatever, generally, you could go to any major outlet. You go to the Ringer, you can go whatever, the Athletic for sports, ESPN, whatever your take is,
Yeah. I mean, it's everybody with entertainment stuff, there's so much everybody's trying to do it in some capacity, especially now, like Tim said, with the podcast and there's so many people that are mixed in that now. And when you think people who listen to this show might think, oh, comics is more niche, but it's like we've separated ourselves in ways, but at the same time, there are a lot of other comic podcasts that have been around for a long ass time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, and they're not. Like there have been some that are more niche than others, like maybe some more Marvel centric, some more indie comic centric, whatever. Some do interviews, like, but it's just, when you think one thing might be a niche, it's, dig a little deeper. It's probably not as niche as you think it is.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I would say another thing that aged the best is our interview podcast. Obviously, we have a background in interviewing people for a living. So that's kind of like a bit of our wheelhouse, kind of combining a passion with our skills, so to speak there. So I thought, any of the interviews, we mentioned last week, Eric and Julia Leewald, the episodes with Christopher Balzano and obviously Tim and Casey Walsh. And even when we've had like Mac and Goo on or stuff like that, other guest appearances from within the Gooniverse, so to speak. I think that's kind of when we're at our best.
Yeah, definitely. We didn't do it a ton, but it was something that when we did it, we did a really good job of. And obviously, like the big pop for us was with the X-Men creators, as you mentioned. Like that was like not because of anything other than like we had a great time with all the interviews that we did, but that one obviously got the most run, like over on like comicbook.com, CBR, all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of fun to have that as well. That was another major high. Absolutely, like, that's something that I will always remember. I mean, they gave us free copies of their coffee table book.
Of course, they got it right next to me still.
Yep, constant reminder, and then like a signed copy of the first page of the first episode of X-Men the Animated Series too. Like I have that with all my other like comic book art too. Like that is a moment like that, and I think that's the thing. Like another thing too, like that will age well. Just like the moments that you and I shared. I know it's like kind of a cliche way to put it or thing to say, but it's just. We did some pretty fun stuff. We did some pretty cool stuff.
Cool things.
We popped off, quite a bit on this show. Like we've been talking about that Deadpool episode lately because like, I feel like we discovered how well it did in the past 6 months or so.
Yeah.
It's kind of like out of nowhere, but we've had other ones where like, we like, oh, wow. Like on YouTube or whatever, or listeners like, oh geez, certain people are like what we said, or for some reason wanted to listen to what we had to say.
Yeah. One of those really head scratching ones is Aquaman of the Lost Kingdom.
Yeah.
Like 2,000 people love that episode, Yeah,
and it was not timely. We did it when it was on HBO.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was so weird.
But yeah, so, sometimes you just never know what the people want. Before we move forward with our top 5, we're going to round out this pair of questions. What do you think will age the worst?
What will age the worst?
So I got an answer if you want a minute to think about it.
Go for it. Yeah, I would like a minute.
The DSG.
Oh yeah, because like there's only we started with 4 podcasts.
Yeah, we gained one, right? TLDR added one.
TLDR, I've heard it both ways.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then MCU at home, so that brought us up to 7. Jeez, math is not my strong suit. So then we lost MCU at home, we lost PCP, and now we've lost. Change My Mind will be lost as well. And then I've heard it both ways, only has so much left on it because of the nature on the show. I don't know if they're going to do another show, but it could be down to 3 in a matter of a year.
And rest in peace, the Facebook group that was there as well, the Facebook page, I should say, that was there, so I think it came together with the best of intentions, but it slowly fizzled apart. We had great sweeps week. I think that was a Jason Rossi PCP special with having crossovers and everything like that, which I thought was really interesting. Dork had us on for a couple of things for like comic book character drafts and different things like that. But then it just slowly fizzled away there.
Yep. Yeah, it's unfortunate how it's done that. I feel like we still like obviously Dork and Goo, like Mac and Goo, they have like they do a lot of their stuff, and we still Rich and Shime have come on TLDR, and we've gone on with Dork here and there. So it's not the same. Like it's not the Dork like the Dork. Like I'm wondering, I haven't asked them this, but I've been wondering like, okay, like when Change My Mind goes, like we have 4 left. Like are we keeping the Dork Shared Gooniverse? Is that like the name that we still want to go by? Like I just because when I heard it both ways, like they have a choice to make. Like Joe's doing 2 shows, Billy's got like a million different things going on, so it could be down to 3 shows by the end of it all.
It's kind of like the fall of Soviet Russia, right? You had one big, powerful USSR, and now you have a whole bunch of micro countries that have split up there. You got your Slovenias, your Slovenias, your Czechoslovakias, all of that stuff. Czech republics, excuse me.
Mm.
You have all these nation states that are formed right now.
Yeah, it's changed a lot, but it was like like they what those guys all were doing before we started was part of that was what led to you and I not
Sure.
only podcasting together, but kind of helped us get to know each other, because like you've talked about, like we knew each other at standard times, we talked here and there, but the way I think you've always put it is like we were two ships passing in the night a lot of times,
Hmm.
just because of the nature of our roles at the company and how things evolved for us over time. But then when we both started listening to those shows, like you actually got me on those shows, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
we started listening to them, and then we were like, fuck it, let's like, you asked me to do the show. Like doing
Hmm.
Change My Mind was originally your idea, but I think I told you this when you asked me. I was like, I've been waffling
I
back and
do
forth
remember that. Yeah.
about asking you if you wanted to do something like this too.
Well, I hope you're a little bit more forward in your love life. I hope Lauren wasn't the first person to approach you, and that you were the traditional male in that role.
You know what? We met on Hinge. She may have liked me first, like on there. She may have
Oh,
liked me first.
okay. All right. Maybe there's a pattern. I don't
Oh
know.
God, I need to talk to somebody about this shit.
Yeah.
Oh my God. But yeah, that's it is crazy. Like that helped and then obviously by we end up podcasting alongside all these guys as part of the same group. So again, like just it's a lot of navel gazing this episode, but it is
Of
just kind of
course.
crazy to think we saw an idea, we wanted to do it, we executed it, and we got to where we are, where we're going now
Yeah,
on our terms.
almost 300 episodes later.
Yeah.
And like you said, this is navel gazing, but this is also like a circle jerk too. At the same time, it's a little more crass than that.
Speaking of number of episodes, we didn't get to 300. That's going to age terribly. That the last episode people can see is 284.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's a good point. Maybe we'll keep it going for 16 episodes.
or just label it 300 and like put in the show notes. Oh yeah, like the other 16 episodes in between got deleted somehow. So
Yeah, files got corrupted. Yep, that's tough.
Shit out of luck.
Mhm.
Sorry guys. Or we could say like what is it? Who was it? What's the am I blanking on the airport security? What they're called?
TSA.
The TSA. Like they reported us to Apple, and now like we lost 16 episodes. So we actually did 300.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. And they probably sexually assaulted us too.
You got pulled aside twice,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
then
Yeah.
in Spain, my poor wife got like they pulled her aside as well. So not me, her.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, maybe that's an instance where you should have made the first move then. And then
Yeah.
maybe you would have got sexually assaulted. But again, I don't know. We're getting ourselves into hot water here. Not in the
Yes,
last
sir.
episode.
Yeah.
All
Sorry.
right, so we're going to our all-time top fives. We left off at the top 5 side characters from a show or movie that we reviewed.
Mhm.
So do you want to start? Yeah, you start. I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, I'll start this one. So the first one, actually no, I'm gonna start from the bottom. Sorry, I'll start at number 5 like I did previously. So
There we go.
Channing, I almost said Jason Tatum. Channing Tatum as Gambit. Steve Kerr will make you think he is a side character.
Mhm.
But I this is a level of recency bias, sure, but the memes, our conversation, talking to other people about it, my
Love the
brother
memes.
included, like I was thrown off at first. We knew it was happening, and I've said it before, like his helmet mask situation. I was like that bugged me, but seeing later that there was like, okay, this is a comedic character more so. Like I
Mhm.
know Remy has humor to him, but the angle, the approach they're taking, they want to be funny, and then the action was fucking badass. Like that was undeniable. So like that has grown on me a ton. I'll cop to a little bit of recency bias, but I think this is a character who like after what happened years ago in X-Men Origins, like I love what Tatum did with
Mhm.
Gambit.
Can you give me your best Channing Tatum Gambit impersonation?
They call me the Gambit. That's all I got.
Ooh, I'm about to make a name for myself today.
I don't think you guys walk away from here. You just tell people what happened today. No, you just make sure people know what happened today. Anyways, Nightcrawler in X-Men 97. The voice was Adrian Hugh,
Yeah.
Hough. Either
I think
way,
it's Huff. Yeah.
Okay, he like that. In no disrespect to the voice actor, it wasn't as much because of him. He did a good job, but the action that we got from that
For
character,
sure.
the highs, like in an amazing first season of X-Men '97 of this reboot, we got more of Nightcrawler than we ever did in the original animated series, and I could not be more pumped to see more of him moving forward. Number 3, Chris Evans as Johnny Storm. Talked about it in Deadpool Wolverine. This one, there is no recency bias with. That was fucking outstanding what he did,
Mm-hmm.
reprising that role again. Speaking of reprising roles, Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. I mean, like, everybody's raved about what he did and everything he did. Such a major redemption for him as an actor. And I was very happy for
Well,
him
I
on
don't
that.
even think it's necessarily because he's mine. We, spoiler alert, we have the same top 2 here, but I loved Andrew Garfield as well. But I don't even think it was bad performances singularly from the Amazing Spider-Man. But I think it was just like the bad movies.
Yeah,
Maybe bad writing, maybe bad execution. But I thought he did a really good job as Peter Parker.
I agree. So this is where like we've had this like debate in the past years, like better like Peter Parker or who's the better Spider-Man. Like those are
Mm-hmm.
as much as like they are the same person, they're also not the same person in
Bruce
a
Wayne,
way.
Batman, sure.
Exactly. So with Andrew Garfield, I thought his Spider-Man was awesome. Like that's where he thrived particularly. His Peter Parker, I didn't think it was bad, but that was not his strong suit. I would
Mm-hmm.
probably put him at number 3 in for that side of the conversation. But as Spider-Man, if someone told me that they think he's the best like Spider-Man in the suit, I mean I'll be okay. Like I'm not gonna say you're out of your mind for saying
Mm-hmm.
something like that is what I mean. We do have the same number 1, so I'm gonna hold off on saying my number 1
Oh.
while you go through your list.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so my number 5, John Cena. This is a little bit of a recency bias, but I thought he was so good. John Cena is Ricky Stenicki in Ricky Stenicki. Can you be a
Mm,
side character when you are the titular character? I don't know, but we're gonna bend the rules on the last episode here
hmm,
because there's 3 main characters, and then he kind of jumps in a little bit later. Very hilarious for me. Solidifies himself as like a very serious comedic actor.
mm.
He's got some really good comedic chops. You saw it a little bit in Trainwreck, and then it kind of comes through in other spots here and there. But John Cena, fantastic, and Ricky Stenicki. Number 4, I was going between either Duncan Idaho or Gurney Halleck from Dune 1 and 2.
Ooh,
Ended up going with Gurney Halleck because I felt like he had a little bit bigger of a role. Josh
yeah.
Brolin, very badass. Just, I mean, no matter what he's doing, he's always great in it. But I thought the Gurney Halleck role is just very cool because he's hard, but he's also like very much a father figure to Paul Atreides. But he's also very much a badass. But you see that kind of like emotional side of him.
Mhm.
Very very cool stuff. Then my number 3, Ben Stiller as Tony Perkis. This is from.
Hmm.
This had to be from my birthday episode last year, episode 235.
Yep.
If you want to go back and rewatch it, but one of the best all-time villains in for my favorite movies, for my personal opinion. Ben Stiller, great as Tony Perkis. Number 2, Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. But number 1, again, maybe a little recency bias, but knocks it out of the park in his performance. Probably the main takeaway of this movie is Jesse Plemons in Civil War.
Yeah, I think when we talk about like we've took some time figuring out like lead actors, side characters, and everything like that, but we finally got there. And Jesse Plemons, like in Civil War, is exactly what a side character is. Like he's a little.
Uncredited.
Yep, a bit. He shows up for a bit. He's on screen. He makes his presence felt, and then we move on from him.
Mhm.
Like he's not in. It's just there's the leading cast. He's not part of it. I mean, Andrew Garfield, you could say, is he part of the leading cast? Maybe, but like Evans, I wouldn't say that Nightcrawler becomes, but he never is on camera, like in the same capacity as the other characters. I mean, I'm just going through my list again. And then the same thing with a Gambit. Like he's obviously one of the more prominent characters, but he doesn't get this massive amount of screen time. Jesse
Mhm.
Plemons doesn't, like you said, doesn't even get a credit. So like he is the like side character of all side characters throughout the course of Change My Mind's history.
Yeah, and as we mentioned, the Civil War exit survey. I mean, obviously that was the big takeaway. Well, what kind of American are you? That was like the big standout scene from the trailer, and then it ends up even like living up to the expectations. Like a good portion of that scene is in the trailer.
And it's still
But
so good.
even more than that, aside from just being like memeable in internet culture, I'm pretty sure those red sunglasses, heart-shaped sunglasses, were sold out on Amazon right after that trailer came out.
Wow,
So,
smart.
yeah,
Smart.
very, very cool stuff there. This is the power of the Pleminator.
Yeah, yeah, apparently, yeah, he was. Oh god, he's so good.
A couple honorable mentions, though. I will say Brad Pitt as Brad Pitt in Dave season 3 for a TV show.
Yeah,
Very good surprise, but he like really, really comes to hang. I wouldn't have ever expected that. And kind of similarly, Bruce Lee in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
yeah. Those are some good calls. I also had Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man in No Way Home, and then again, this is where jotting down stuff and trying to figure it out and reminding myself, no, these guys aren't side characters, but like people who came up to me, like in my mind, that weren't the number one lead in the show were like Andrew Santino as Mike in Dave. But again, like he's not really a side character, right?
I might say him more than Gata.
Yes, not Gata. Like Gata, definitely not.
Yeah.
He's number 2. But he was another person who came to my head because he's not Dave, so he's not the number 1 guy. But he becomes the number 2.
He becomes a lovable character on the show. He's got a couple of his own centered episodes devoted to him.
Yeah, and then I guess if we have Tony Perkis on the list, you could argue that Agatha Harkness would be eligible for this list. So obviously she's lurking in the background, but always minor stuff, and then the reveal. I know people are like, "Why is Agatha getting her own show?" But I'm not saying this is justification for her getting her own show as much as I am kind of excited for it. But her reveal and everything that was done with her, people loved her. Like that character was beloved out of a show that was very much beloved.
For sure. And I can see that too, because again, like she wasn't a main deal in this until the very end. And then she had the number 1 song on iTunes.
Yep.
Or
And
or whatever.
I love Catherine Hahn too, but proud Northwestern alumni.
Oh yeah, that's right. There's the bias coming through there. Okay.
Never forget.
Top 5 shows that we didn't review that were released during CMM's life.
Yeah. So I'll keep this one on the quicker side. There are definitely plenty of options just because there's certain things that you like, certain things I like that don't jive with necessarily what the audience wants to watch, or maybe we just we can't watch everything either. Like, excuse me, it's just impossible.
As they say.
So number 5 on my list was Wednesday. So this is the Addams Family spinoff show reboot show that we got. I absolutely love this. Same goes for The Sandman, another Netflix show. That one's going to be coming back. I don't know how soon, but we are getting a second season of that. Ahsoka, which appears to be one of the few shows that is surviving this Star Wars TV show phase.
Yeah.
Number 2, The Witcher. I'm concerned about what it's going to look like post Henry Cavill with Liam Hemsworth. We just did a Hunger Games marathon, the missus and I. And it's like, I'm not saying Gale and Geralt are the same, but like one should show a lot more emotion than the other. But I just watching him, it's like this doesn't give me a fuck ton of confidence for him as an actor. So that's not great. And then the last one is Peaky Blinders, which is my number 1 show of all time. That we only, I think, 2 seasons, maybe even the penultimate season finished before our show started. I'm not sure, but I know the absolute last one did. I love Peaky Blinders. It is like Tommy Shelby is one of my all-time favorite characters. So is Arthur Shelby. We never did an episode on that. I never expected to. But like that, if I was to go back and say what's one thing that we didn't talk about on the show that I would love to flesh out more, it would be Peaky Blinders.
And I don't even think this was worthy of all the shit that you got. But when we did our top 50 TV shows of all time with the formerly known as Dork Shared Universe, you got a lot of shit for putting Peaky Blinders number 1.
Yeah,
I didn't get that.
I don't think anybody else had it on their list. But
that's not an outrageous show. Like that's like still a widely popular show.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. There are plenty of times I have opinions or takes of like just don't make sense to people or whatever, and that's fine. Like I don't know. I have different things that interest me, and I move on.
Had you put Hotel Transylvania on there, then it might be worthy of some shit.
Oh yeah. I don't think I think Castlevania did pop up on my
Oh,
list
that's
at
what I'm
some
thinking
point.
of. Yeah, yeah.
I think it popped up when I was like doing the early stages. Maybe it did make my list, but it was way far down. Like, but no, I guess they're not. They're very much not the same. And I get why some people can't watch Peaky Blinders because they don't like subtitles, and it's very hard to understand
Hmm.
their British accents. I think it's Cockney
Hmm.
accents. So like, I get it, but I don't know. I didn't watch it with subtitles until what's his face, Tom Hardy showed up on the show. Then it just everything changed.
Yeah, okay. I was Hotel Transylvania, of course, is a Adam Sandler animated show about vampire or movie, right?
Oh, it's Adam Sandler. I didn't realize
I
that. But yeah,
think
it is.
so. Yeah.
It is animated. Absolutely.
Castlevania. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for that. Okay, so my top 5 of shows. This is a recent one. We talked about it a little bit, but didn't do a full review of it. Tires on Netflix. Shane Gillis.
Oh
A little
yeah.
bit of a recency bias there, but big Shane Gillis fan. And then the rest are pretty much HBO shows. So White Lotus was a little bit late to that. Didn't watch it like when it aired with everyone else, but I did binge it with the wife both seasons. Curb Your Enthusiasm obviously started long before our podcast, but ended this past year. Great show. I always enjoyed watching that on Sundays. Mayor of Easttown. That's starring Kate Winslet. That was a one-off HBO season, but really good whodunit type of thing with a lot of family drama going on in there. And then listen, it didn't end well, but at its time, Game of Thrones was the biggest like pop culture thing for like 3 years running. And we talked about Game of Thrones, but not like in its entirety, right?
We definitely talked about it in its last season in some capacity. Like that we did. Like I remember seeing episodes where
No
like
shit.
I don't know if we did a full episode, but we definitely like devoted like talking about a couple episodes at a time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there we go. So then that's good enough for me then. But a couple honorable mentions. House of the Dragon. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia might be my version of your Peaky Blinders. Like I'm like itching to talk about that show in the long form content. But because I love it so much, I like fall asleep to it every night. And recently, The Rehearsal on HBO. That was with Nathan Fielder. Nathan For You. It's kind of like he pulls random people and tries to like create a life, and it's very weird.
Oh, that one. Okay. Yep.
Very irreverent, I think is the term. But yeah, it was good. The ending kind of weirded me out a little bit, but it was funny.
Yeah, I remember seeing that one and thinking that it looked a little different for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely offbeat.
But yeah, for my honorable mentions, I did have Rings of Power on here, which that second season's coming back. Andor, which that one is getting a second season, I believe, but I don't know if I think it's done after that. But that show was very well done. Shadow and Bone, which was a Netflix show that got 2 seasons and then didn't come back for a third, which I was kind of shocked by. And then Umbrella Academy, which was based on a Dark Horse comic series that just wrapped up. Actually, my wife put me onto that show. I was not going to watch it, and then I met her. She loves it, and then I'm so glad that she introduced me to it.
Now, this is one I think we overlooked. I don't think we talked about it. I think you should leave. We talked about it, but not a devoted episode, right?
I think you're right. I don't know. It's just, I know like with like Dork and like Mac and Goo, like especially like Dork, like they absolutely love it, and I know you absolutely love it too. But it just like they do it. They do a good job with it. But I felt like I don't know, like it's an odd thing for me. I felt like to talk about breaking it down like in its totality.
Yeah, because it is kind of like there's nothing really to talk about. It's just kind of crazy. It's just kind of a crazy comedy. But they, Mac and Goo and Dork did a really good job. Dork especially. I remember like cracking up at their episode about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Just that's like so part of our universe and like our like friend circle.
Yeah, and we joke about we definitely pull like quotes on it all the time. Like in the course of the show, we definitely like referenced it more than anything else on this show. But yeah, I think that's probably like I didn't push it. I didn't push for it because I just was like I don't know how I would do that. Like I just feel like I mean maybe I could have and I was overthinking it, but yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, no, I hear you, but just maybe just want to throw it out there.
That was a fair point. It's a very good point.
This one I enjoyed putting together. Top 5 movies we didn't review that were released during CMM's lifestyle.
Yeah.
Life.
Yeah. You want to go first?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. A little stroke. So what do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, with 3 honorable mentions. Again, I'm not even sure if these are on. I just kind of wrote these all down in like no particular order. I haven't really moved them around too much. But Rocket Man, really enjoyed that theater experience on Elton John. Taron Egerton did a great job. Actually sang, which is more than we could say for Rami Malek. Fun time though. It was a good movie, good date movie. Big Elton John fan, like I mentioned, so I enjoyed that. No Sudden Move. This was an HBO movie that might have came out just on like HBO Max at the time, or Max now. But it's Matt Damon makes a guest appearance. Why can't Don Cheadle is in there? Benicio del Toro's in there. It's all about Detroit and like the mob and the car companies all kind of coming together for like Cadillac to try to suppress the Cadillac converter patent so that they could charge more for gas and all this type of stuff. So pretty interesting. And it's like based on, or at least, loosely based on a true story. So very enjoyed that very much. This movie I just saw over the weekend. This is part of my Discharge Depot. Really enjoyed it, despite its length. Horizon: An American Saga Part 1, the Kevin Costner movie about the American frontier around the Civil War time. Very, very good. 3-hour movie for an intro. So if you didn't like Dune Part 1 because it was 2.5 hours of build up to nothing, then you're probably not going to like this. But it's really interesting stories nonetheless. You got the Apache Indians, you got people in Arizona, New Mexico territories, Wyoming, Montana territory. So it's just all kind of spread out. And you kind of follow different families and groups. So it's like little vignettes almost, which I liked. And actually, I think the Montana family is the Sykes family.
Oh, well, how about that?
Yeah. I'm going to just fully embrace my American supremacy now.
There you go. Okay.
Well, one of the original settlers. I was like, okay, well, if you had seen the Fryer family out there with a bunch of like beaver pelts over their shoulders, kind of traversing through the mountainside, you'd be like, hell, freaking yeah.
That would be pretty cool to see that.
They're bad dudes though. They're not good people.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah,
that's too bad.
But they're my people though. I gotta love them.
I will say I am. I've been ever since like I went over to Europe and stuff. I've been curious about like because I know one half of my family like didn't come over to America till like the 60s or maybe just like at the start of the 70s, like the 1970s. But I've been curious about like my other side of the family with that too, and I'm actually going to do a little. I forget if I did Ancestry or what, but try and see because I know like I don't know where my Irish side like when they came over, but I know my English side came over in like the 1870s. So I'm really curious to learn like all that kind of stuff because Lauren's done it and it seems pretty cool.
I'm interested with that. I'm just don't want to give any more of my DNA to the government too. Like that's also like maybe that's an irrational holdup that I have, but it's pretty much the deciding force behind not doing it right now.
I said that thing to my brother and then he was like, I said it might be a little irrational. He's like, a little? I was like, okay, well, yeah. And I want to do it. So I was like, fuck it. And Lauren's done it. So it's just whatever.
We don't know what they're using that data for. What if they have like a whole like black book organization of creating clones?
But I think there's a level of
that's not irrational, Nick. That's perfectly rational.
If they already have that, then like, oh, sorry. If you think they're doing that through this, what's to say they don't already have it?
Well, no, but maybe they need some of that. And then what they do is they like partner with Facebook to create that whole like social profile idea, personality of you.
Maybe.
Or, whatever your social medias are. And that's how they kind of fill out the clone.
So
I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
For the CMM reunion, whenever that happens, we'll circle back and then see like in 10 years or something like that and see if that happens or not.
Mm-hmm. We'll bring our clones on as guests. That's what we'll do.
God, I would hate that. Like, forget if I like got duped into that. Like, I just hate that idea in general.
No, it's like how when you like hate things about other people that they might actually be like stuff that you know about yourself, but you're just failing to recognize.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's usually how it is.
That would be like literally staring in the mirror.
Yep.
Calling the kettle black there. But to round up my top 5, Parasite, Academy Award winner, great movie. Really loved that. Same thing with my number one, Oppenheimer, Academy Award winner. Was late to the party on both of those. Didn't watch them when they were, going through the Oscar hype. But really, really enjoyed both of them.
Parasite wasn't on my list, but it should have been on my list. But what I did have, this is recency bias, but also like if we had like one more week leading up to our like show ending, we would have done an episode on the Instigators, 100% on Apple TV, because that is like, this was Matt Damon, Casey Affleck, set in Massachusetts. It's heist, it's funny, like it was very much in our wheelhouse, and just time was not on our side for this one. A movie that I feel like it would have been an odd one for us to do a review on, but an outstanding one, and I just blew my mind, was 1917. This came out in 2019. But I talked about it at the time when I watched it. I think it was in 2020 with my dad was visiting, and I was blown away because it looks like the whole movie is just shot on one camera on a continuous shot. And I mean, I feel like I saw something similar somewhere else recently, but never seen it done exactly like this. And it was really mind blowing and really like immersed you into the whole experience. Again, I don't know how we like handle it from a review standpoint, but very much enjoyed that viewing experience.
And that was an Academy Award winner as well, Best Picture winner, right? I think it was definitely nominated.
Yeah, I believe it was. Yeah, so The Instigators, 1917, and the fact we didn't do an episode on this one isn't like. So The Instigators was, just unfortunate timing. Free Guy, we should have done an episode on that.
We probably should have, yeah.
Like watching that, I watched it way too long after the fact. Just kind of wrote it off as whatever. And oh my God, like it's so fucking good. I actually, now that I'm talking about it, I kind of want to go back and rewatch it. It's been a bit since I last saw it, but Free Guy was Ryan Reynolds, Taika Waititi. And just like for anybody who's into like the MCU specifically and the DC stuff, very much like a movie that needs to be seen. And then to round things out, number 2, Barbie, and number 1, Oppenheimer. Same number 1 as yours. And obviously like a just brilliant movie, and both of them were really well done, obviously.
Yeah, and Barbie made my honorable mention list. I was so pleasantly surprised with that. I thought I was going to have to really drag myself through this movie when my wife suggested watching it, and I was like, I don't really know. It's a chick movie, it's Barbie, but it was really fun, a really fun time. And if nothing else, you get some really quality male representation from Ryan Gosling, Simu Liu, and why can't I think of his name? Super bad, Michael Cera.
Oh yeah, Michael Cera. That's right. I forgot. That's right. Yeah, I forget which one he was, but because he was the one not Ken.
He's like Peter or something like that, right?
Something odd like that. Yeah.
But some other honorable mentions: just The Green Knight. That's an A24 movie with Dev Patel.
Oh, it's A24. I didn't know that. I gotta watch that then. I know that story.
Yeah, really good story. Really again, slow moving pace, but really interesting nonetheless. And then lastly, actually, The Green Knight is playing the actor who played the Green Knight is going to be Galactus.
Oh, I missed
Fantastic
that.
Four. Yeah,
I missed that. Okay, cool.
And then lastly, Knives Out, which I know we did Glass Onion. I'm pretty sure we did Glass Onion.
You think so, but we didn't do the original.
The original one, but so good though. And that came out like I feel like right in the pandemic, or at least I watched it during the pandemic and was like, this is good stuff. Nice who done it. I'm a sucker for those.
Of course, yeah. And then for me, A Quiet Place Part 2. Obviously, we did the original versus sequel. We didn't talk about the direct sequel, or original versus prequel, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Extraction, which is the Chris Hemsworth action movies on Netflix. I think the first one came out in 2020, and then another one came out, I believe it was this past year. If not, it was 2022. Not episodes that I think that would be not a movie that would be good for us to do a whole episode on, but it was like from an action standpoint and the way that is shot is really well done. Really, I really enjoyed that experience. And I feel like with action movies, just like what they were like in the 90s and maybe the early aughts, and obviously before that, I feel like there was you had a certain era of what the action movies were. Now it's like they're all IP in some capacity, but Extraction is kind of like the evolution I would think of what they used to be, and all centered around Chris Hemsworth, who does a great job.
I'm gonna have to watch that movie. I just
Okay.
recently watched Black Hat. Like I mentioned before, I've been kind of going on like a little Michael Mann run. I watched Miami Vice and Black Hat, but it's like he's essentially a prison. He gets out of prison and he's a hacker. But he's
Oh,
like the most handsome, beautiful hacker that you've ever seen with huge muscles who can also, fight black ops military guys. So, it's kind of like a cheesy movie, but I would love to. It seems kind of similar in that sense, at least from like a action standpoint. So I'll give Extraction a try.
yeah. I would recommend anybody who likes action movies should check out Extraction. And then Fear Street. That was a 3 like movie Netflix experience. And it was horror and it was kind of like throwback and everything.
Mhm.
Not perfect, but I really enjoyed like the throwback nature of it. The story was well done. I mean, I don't remember like how I would have graded it, but I know I want to go back and rewatch it. It's been a little bit for me.
Before we move on to our next list, let's get another exit survey question in there. And before we get to our next question, I want to circle back to what age the worst. This jogged my memory when you mentioned Free Guy. But what age the worst, maybe on a personal note, was not watching Detective Pikachu, another Ryan Reynolds joint, and then trying to give a review on it. And just having you be like, Nick, you got to carry this. I just did not get to watch this.
It's that was yeah that I forgot about that, and that was in the early days. That was
Mhm.
I think we were still doing stuff at BSM,
Yep.
yeah, the aforementioned WBSM that where Tim hosts his morning show, but uh, we did that at my condo, and you had like
Yeah.
your whole audio set up and everything, and then you showed up and told me, and I was like, wait, what? I was like, what the fuck? I was like, I was blown away. Like, I don't know how we're gonna do this, and I know I can go off on rants like with the best of them, but there are also times where like I'm like, dude, you got to shut up. Like you got to stop. Like you're talking too much.
Yeah,
And
for sure. Both ways. Yeah.
yeah, so I was like, that was like, oh, this is like I'm gonna sound like like an asshole, like talking the whole fucking time over West. Like I know we're telling people that you didn't see as much, see the whole thing or see it, but I was like, oh no,
Yeah. I don't think we told anyone until after we were done with the review.
that might be what it was. So then that's what I was worried about. Like, oh, people are why is Nick talking the whole fucking time? Let
Yeah.
West talk. Yeah. So that was
So
yeah.
that definitely didn't age well. But maybe over time it actually aged pretty well because now we're laughing at it. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, fair.
Who had the best performance by a side character on the podcast?
Okay, so okay, when I saw this originally, I was like, what does he like? Who is he talking about? What is all the people who showed up on our show throughout the course of
Yeah. Do we have to go rehash this debate on what a side character is now?
no, I'm like, what do you mean by that? And in the context of our show, I'm just a dumbass. I will probably I think I have to give the nod to Billy D. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, formerly of the Pop Culture Pile Driver podcast, and now of the I've Heard It Both Ways podcast, because Billy was part of one of our best episodes ever, which we didn't. This is a sin. We should have had this on our best non-review episodes. The Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings debate.
Oh
That
yes, of
that oh
course.
god, that's
Mm-hmm.
bad. I should have because that got people talking, people voting. I mean, I look back at the list that we had, and you guys can check out that list in our previous episode. But that was a really fun time, a really fun debate. And then Billy came on for a lot of our Spill the Cinema drafts, and he
Yes.
won quite a
Pretty
few
much
of those.
every time he came on. Yeah.
He's probably the league leader in wins in the Build a Cinema drafts, which we didn't get to complete that, of course. But he,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I probably got to give it to Billy because he also showed up probably the most of anybody. He was probably Billy number one. Yeah,
Yeah, he's definitely good there. Can I put forth 2 nominees?
I actually just thought of another one too. Yes, of course.
All right, now let's go get them.
Those are some good ones.
Those are pretty good.
I will say so. Billy, in terms of like everything he did, but in terms of like name status, I probably got to give it to Kourtney Kardashian because she was on the show for a little while and she did a pretty outstanding job.
That was a pretty good get. That was yeah, I mean, as far as our like communication skills coming through there, being able to speak with her publicist and find the right time. Of course, she's so busy.
Yeah.
Getting that in there as well. And then yeah, maybe taking her out for a nice wine and dine afterwards.
Yeah, you outdid yourself with that one, and I would love to hear more of. I think I told you this. I don't know if I told the listeners this though. I so Lauren didn't know that Julia had done that, because I feel like Julia stopped doing it. Courtney stopped appearing on the show.
Of course.
By the time that I had met Lauren. But I told, after you and I like rehashed that whole thing, I told Lauren about it and played like one of her episode of Courtney's appearances. She absolutely loved it. She had so much fun with that.
Well, good. Jules will love that, 'cause she felt like that wasn't she. I think that bit ran thin with her at the end. It was like, I can't do it anymore.
That's too bad, but she did a good job with that. We both had fun with it. I'm not target audience, but my wife was.
Yeah, there we go. That's perfect. Yeah. I don't think, to be fair, I'm not sure if anyone was real. I think we were trying to corner the women's market there. And I'm not sure if we ever really won that women's market over. So, that's all good stuff. But we mentioned best performance by a side character. This guy's been brought up a plethora of times, and he's not really even in the universe anymore. I'm happy to know that he's alive, though, because we hear from him so rarely these days. But it's our one very own Jason D. Rossi.
I'm sorry if I'm late.
Hey, we're still going.
You guys it was a very emotional moment there. You guys were talking like deep stuff. Oh, my son's here too. This is
hey.
That Mini Rossi.
Also, funny enough, his name also Jason, not D, but Jason Rossi. Just the JJ. He was my JJ. Back up, dude. I'm something. Yeah. I'll make this quick because it's not about anything that I have to say. It's going to be anywhere important. But I will just say how exciting it was when the universe all came together that Wes paid for StreamYard. From that we got, I don't know what it's, I haven't been able to listen. I apologize. The 2-kid thing, life's crazy. It's a good thing. Everything is good in life.
Beautiful. Nice pat on the back.
Yeah. Give me a little love there. Credit right before it goes into pure chaos. All right, dude. No. Yeah. So one thing I really want to share, though, for memories from me. Now, as someone who was, as you mentioned, part of previous universe member, will say when the shooting stars were crossing streams, if you would. My favorite thing about your podcast, without a doubt, bar none, the one I listen to hold on. Hey, dude, this is the last warning. I'm going to come over there and hit you with the ball like it's 1950. Is your original versus sequel podcast.
See, there we go.
Yeah, we've been talking about that so much recently. Yes, because we did it, and then you were like, "This is a great idea." And once we were like, "Oh, Rossi's saying it's a good idea," and it was fun. And we got to think about doing more of this.
I would say that I'm not in any way the curator of great ideas, but when there are very few ideas that I've watched other podcasts or channels or Shadow Sonic. Or,
there we go.
Other that too, is that I
love this.
Why did I come on? Is that I'll be honest, that was the most interesting was that, like, for you guys getting that made me jealous, like literally jealous of the content. Like, it's such a good idea. You guys executed. I will never forget, and I have listened back. I'm not joking. It is, like you can favorite podcasts now, like the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Your Home Alone 1 vs. 2 is probably, in my opinion, I know you guys do a lot of the exit surveys on modern movies. Yeah, you're probably going to crack your head during this. Is that one specifically, though, I listen back to quite often because you guys, the content, the banter, the passion for each one was incredible. It really was. It was incredible.
Well, I appreciate, and you're a curator of good ideas and content as a former producer yourself. So you can identify talent and what's working and what's not in the segment there. So I appreciate you sharing that. That's of the utmost respect.
I can tell you if you want to know the truth behind the scenes, when Michael Hawley left WEEI, I was the one who said, John Tomasi, please, we got to get him in first. That's a perfect segue of, Boston radio talent.
Rossi, we got to tell before. I know you got to scoot because Shadow and Tails need some attention, but we've been talking about this recently just because Wes realized it on our YouTube channel. I was kind of blown away by it and continue to check it afterwards. We talk about that idea of the original versus sequel. We actually did a Deadpool episode on that. That ended up blowing up on our YouTube page. We're like, I wouldn't be stunned if by this time next year it gets to 100K. It's up to 70 something so far.
Yeah, it's like 78 or 79K.
Yeah, but just a testament to your call. Like that's partially you, man.
I don't give me any credit aside from the fact that I was a fan of it. You guys did a great job with it. And I would just say this. I don't know why everything ends the way it does. Like for me, I can get into a whole soliloquy another time, but I would say that. Why? What is this? Like, really? Why?
He left me on camera.
Yeah, I guess so. What do you want to do? Is that I would just say that, like, even here and there, like YouTube content of that, if you either want, like, that stuff is so, like, people love that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, all the, like, think about it, like, you did a lot of like movies, like the whatever, like the MCU when those movies were released, you do the exit surveys and stuff like that. Which is a really good idea, but those like live forever because sequel versus originals are always going to be. Like that's the evergreen content. It's not just like, hey, this movie just came out, stuff like that. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on the whole matter for wherever things go from here. But I also, it was great to get to know you guys as well through this.
Yeah.
The few times I got to hang and stuff like that. Like I'm just like dead serious. Like I'm thankful for stuff like that. And it was just cool because we were also like in a weird way, like these like underdogs in the universe, if you would. The outcasts, the there, why are we here kind of people. So you guys
are minor leaguers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think we were ever getting called up to the majors, but
no. Well, you still live on in the Rossi horrible take drop right there. There we go. Which I don't think, again, great take coming up with the original versus sequel or pushing that for us there. So I don't think you're worthy of the Rossi's horrible take moniker.
Yeah, I'm definitely worthy of it, but I appreciate this 1 out of 50 that was half decent, but it curated for other people.
Well, I will keep the reoccurring payments on the StreamYard in the event that we want to revive our RSS feed, and then maybe we can do original versus sequel and just do that straight out.
There you go.
Every so often, but honestly, my hat's off. Literally, my hair's off. You're gonna cut their heads off. Cool. This is really good stuff. Because he's holding. You want to know? Hold on. Let's show this for content purposes. This is a Drew Bledsoe signed card.
Oh wow, that's nice.
He's taking and he's going in front of your guys' faces on the screen and just going like this. It's very diabolical in this house. It's sweet as a button. But putting it in front of a camera. It's like,
apparently, yeah.
She's a barber.
Yeah. Are you Chucky or what's going on here? Who's your favorite horror movie character? Messi. Okay, there you go.
He gets it.
Yeah. So
Rossi,
anyway,
thank you very much,
thank you guys, and thank you guys for always like reaching out. All the things that you guys did when we, the universe was what it was at that time, and honestly, it was always a pleasure working with you guys and chatting with you. And I hope whatever all the things, not just in life, that it's like in these spheres, but I'm talking about all the things you do in life with your families and everything. Just wish you the best of luck, and I'm
right
only
back at you.
Away, and I love you guys. Be good.
Love you too, brother. Thanks, Rossi.
Hey, let's get together, everyone, Christmas time at the Kowloon. What do you say?
Yeah, I love the sound of it.
I'll put the text in now. You never have to tempt me with a good time.
Yeah,
let's do it. Let's lock it in.
All right.
Awesome.
Hey, to change my mind, my hair, my hat, it was been an honor, and you guys kick ass.
Thanks so much, brother.
Jason, JJ, thanks so much.
Blow him a kiss. Blow him a kiss. Now he's messing with his elbow.
Here we go. All right.
Oh man,
a little more than we bargained for with JJ. I love that. That's great. Getting the kid in there, the next generation.
I love that. Like that. I mean, this is Rossi's the best. Like this is like when people wonder in the DSG, like like why he's like because you have the horrible takes. Like Rossi, like he has good takes too, but he also is a fucking great person, and this like, and he's fucking insightful. Like it's. I am so glad that we got to know Rossi in the time of doing this show. And he was, I mean, and I was so glad that he like, I haven't listened in a while. I still listen to like some of your old hits with the original versus sequel, but like bringing up that idea, it's just like, hey man, like it fucking worked.
That's a cool full circle moment. Because again, we've been like glazing him and his urgings of us in that department there. So it's nice for him to acknowledge it and not even know it. Again, we're not giving scripts to these people. They don't know what they're saying. This is live podcasting, baby.
Real quick before we get on to finishing off questions and whatnot, I saw this come up right around when Rossi popped on. Andrew B in the chat just chimed in letting us know that he's going to be listening tomorrow, but just like a thank you for the show and everything like that. Very much appreciate listeners chiming in. So we are going to miss the show too, Andrew. And thank you for weighing in.
For following along too.
Yeah, for real.
Okay. So let's see if we can burn through these a little bit with some pace here. Top 5 worst movies or shows that we've reviewed. And again, we may not even be able to spend that much time on them because they're so bad. It's not even worth talking about.
They don't deserve the time, so I'll go real quick here. I kept it to the ones that we reviewed. I didn't include a Summer Catch or Ghost Rider, which did have like crazy low scores for us. Number 5, Dark Phoenix. That was episode 21. Only one of us gave it a grade, and it was a 66.
Is that me or you?
I don't know. It wasn't in the doc.
Oh,
It just
really?
said 60. It just said 66, and I was like, all right, I'm not listening back.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Okay.
Rebel Moon Part 2, Scargiver. I gave that a 68. Obviously, that's
Yeah.
fairly recent. Morbius, I gave that a 65, episode 164. MODOK, which was a show on Hulu, and just claymation did not do it for me at all. I gave it a 61. Oddly enough, it was episode 61 of the show. And then worst all time for me, Madam Web, gave that a 30. That was episode 258.
Okay, my bottom 5, I guess. Wonder Woman 84. That was episode 98. Give it a score of 75. So some of these scores aren't like, I'm not necessarily going by score here. I'm also going by vibes too.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah, vibes are key.
Echo at number 4, episode 252, score of 77. Would like that one back. That's too high of a score.
Okay.
Again, this is my lowest rated review that we've had. Is Mortal Kombat Legends: Scorpion's Revenge. This is an animated feature on HBO Max.
So much better than you fucking graded it. I could not believe it. I was equally as stunned by this as I was by your praise of Justice League Dark.
Episode 69, score 44 on that. Madam Web, we're in agreement there. This is my second worst, your first worst. Episode 258, score 57. And just the all-time worst thing that we've reviewed is She-Hulk, in my opinion, episode 192, score 55. A couple of honorable mentions: True Detective Night Country, episode 257. That was a score of 70. More disappointment than like outright bad, if that makes sense. But the level of disappointment was high.
Yeah.
Morbius, as you mentioned, gave that a 70. And also this one, I think might have got memory hold. You had this a very, very high score, actually, from to my surprise, was Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. That's episode 138, if you're interested.
Did I give it a B?
I gave it a 68. What did you think your score would be?
I would guess I gave it a 75, but I'm starting to think that I gave it like an 80 or something.
87.
That's bad.
We'll take that one back. Yeah,
I would take that one back. Wonder Woman 84 just missed my list as well. The Watcher was on my list originally too, just because again, like it started out strong and then just turned into a fucking disjointed mess. Like when we talk about writing, like that one went so many different wrong ways. Mentioned Ghost Rider and Summer Catch, but obviously didn't come out in the life of the show. And then one that came out very early on in the show was Good Boys, which I don't remember what you gave it for a score. I gave it a 71. Probably like would give it a much lower score now, but neither of us cared for that. I think the episode title was Good Boys and it wasn't that good.
Yeah, that's when we were trying to fire off Stephen A. Smith hot takes in the title instead of just trying to like SEO it.
Yeah, yes, that's exactly what it was. 100%.
Yeah, Good Boys. I mean, I've never gone back to watch it. I never really felt excited to go back and watch it. The thing was always weird to me was how young they were.
Yeah, no, that was it was a choice.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
It's a choice, that's for sure. Yeah. All right, how about the 5 worst leading performances from a movie or show that we reviewed?
So I did move the goalposts a little bit on this one, and did include some of the rewatches. Number 5, Pedro Pascal as Maxwell Lord in Wonder Woman 84. It was so fucking bad. He was that movie had a lot of problems, but I love Pedro Pascal, but I did not care for his character, his portrayal. Dakota Johnson as Madam Web is number 4, believe it or not. She's not the worst because Tahar Rahim as Ezekiel Sims in Madam Web was the male lead, and he was awful. I could have put him higher on this list. Quite honestly, I probably should have put him at number 1, but recency bias for the show at least. Jessica Biel as Tenley Parrish, and then Freddie Prinze Jr. as Ryan Dunn, both in Summer Catch.
This feels like a personal attack on me, and I don't appreciate it because while I agree that they're awful, it's almost so bad it's good. It's like Spider-Man 3. You know, that's kind of how I view it there, but I can't be mad at that.
I am so glad I rewatched that movie, and I will absolutely do it again of my own volition at some point.
Now, my one critique is if you are going that route, I might flip flop Jessica Biel and Freddie Prinze Jr. because we know the ceiling of Freddie Prinze and it's not that high. But Jessica Biel is pretty good.
That's fair. I think if I was to take it back, but it's too late. This is permanent. This is etched in time. Tahir Ream would probably like move ahead of those two because that was just one of the worst. I mean, that was probably the worst acting performance I've seen ever. So
It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Anyway, what do you got?
I got Callie Reese playing Detective Evangeline Navarro from True Detective Night Country.
Okay.
Not a big fan. Not a big fan of the form. I thought she was very stiff and then like too spiritual. It also kind of leads into the show. It's too spiritual when you should have been more procedural. And then the spiritual stuff didn't really pay off. Not really for me. She was a little too hardcore. Usually have like a good cop, bad cop sort of thing. Like both of these were like bad cops.
It was very much a bad cop situation.
Yeah.
Bad cop.
Matt Smith from Morbius playing Milo.
He crossed my mind.
Pretty bad. What stands out in my mind, though, again, this scene in particular is so bad that it's funny. I remember laughing at the moment, so it didn't even have that moment to like be bad and then make that turn like Spider-Man 3 did for me. But when he's singing and getting ready and dancing around like once he can finally walk again. Very ridiculous scene. Very crazy. But like to see that he rebounded from that nicely with House of the Dragon. He's become like a heartthrob. He's
a good actor. He was also Doctor Who before that as well. Very, very, I believe he was very much liked in that role. But anyways,
very close to Pedro Pascal's Maxwell Lord, which I love that pick. I think that was great. Very bad performance. Kristen Wiig, Wonder Woman 84 is Cheetah. Not very good at all.
Yeah, part of me would chalk this one more to the writing of the movie, but at the same time, I'm not gonna.
I would say like the casting, like Kristen Wiig's not a villain.
You know what?
She's a good person who's weird. She plays like that weird role really well.
That's a fair point.
What about Christian Bale? This might be a little bit of a reach as Gore the God Butcher in Thor: Love and Thunder. And this might be just like you said, a little bit more of like a writing or the character issue, or just like not really exploring everything fully. But I don't know. I felt like it was just a big waste.
I mean, it's one thing if you feel like they wasted the character, but I love what he did on screen. This is one of the wildest takes I think you've had in the show's history.
Yeah, I don't know. Or maybe I'll play with the wording of the question: 5 worst leading performances. So it's like the performance is fine, but with what we get as the whole result, like the character was just like butchered. Dare I say?
So you were dissatisfied with it. Yeah, okay.
As I'm talking through it, maybe that should be an honorable mention. I should add my honorable mention in place of that, which was Woody Harrelson in Venom 2. As Cletus Cassidy. But number 1, Dakota Johnson, Madam Web.
No Tahir Rahim. I'm actually kind of like...
No, I could see it on there, but I just didn't want to have it definitely could have been on there. I just didn't want to have too many repeats on there. So have a little bit more of a diverse group there, but certainly one of the worst performances that we saw.
We can't let people think we're too like-minded as we walk out of this show.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, let's do top 5 Marvel characters. And you got a little note here that you added on.
Yeah, I just wanted to do this with Marvel and with DC for everybody, just like because we started off the show at we've talked about it, how like very different positions in life, and I feel like very different positions in like what we consume from entertainment. And I've gone through like different appreciations through the years of different characters. Even now with comics, like I very much appreciate indie more so now than I ever have. I think it's also the best that it's ever been for like the past 10 years. But anyways, I wanted to just take a look back and see if you can recall what you loved back in the start of the show, and like now do you feel like your list is different than what it would have been 5 years ago?
Interesting. Yeah, so it's definitely has changed. But I would have been mostly chalk. Your Wolverines, your Spider-Man, and so very much that is the case. But my number 5, Baron Zemo. If I'm just thinking strictly from like an MCU standpoint, Daniel Bruhl, I think is the actor's name, or how you pronounce his last name. I might be screwing that up, but is so good in it. And one of the real bright spots in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Very disappointed that he's not going to be in the Thunderbolts or maybe he is, but it's they're kind of hiding him at the moment. But I thought he was a very good villain, especially looking back. I think he's gotten better because of the lack of good villains that we've gotten after him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hawkeye, again, someone who's kind of grown on me for the years. Certainly loved him in Hawkeye, but he also, like, I felt like the writing team at Marvel figured out how to utilize him the best.
Yeah, it's a good call.
Because like when you first introduced him, he's like kind of lurking up like in the Hawk's Nest, looking down at Thor and like in Mjolnir and everything. And he's like very like a shadowy figure. And now he's like light and playful, but serious. Like I think back to like, I think this was Age of Ultron with Wanda. And he's like, there's people flying around here and I got a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
all right, that's cool stuff. WandaVision really did that for me, but I really loved her character. And big fan of Elizabeth Olsen. But my 1-2 has kind of remained the same since I started watching the MCU, and my number 1 has always been Spider-Man, but my number 2, Iron Man, Tony Stark.
But seeing the three, like, I think it's good that there's a mix. Like seeing those three at the bottom, like they never would have, like what the MCU has done, those characters never would have been on.
Yeah, exactly.
As for me, I feel like I've had I flipped back to where I was in some ways. So when I started out, I would have had Bucky on my list. I love but I feel like Winter Soldier really dropped off over time. Rocket is my favorite MCU character. But like I feel like over time I've appreciated what's in the comics a little bit more, and then also been reminded like how much I love the X-Men, especially with the return of X-Men.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And Cap's another one that probably would have been on my list as well. But all of those guys didn't make it. Those are my honorable mentions. But coming in at number 5 is Magneto. Of course, I have his fucking helmet. He's got to make this list. Rogue, number 4. Moon Knight, number 3, who I know the Moon Knight series like deserves its criticisms. I'm not going to debate that with anybody. For someone who fell in love with Moon Knight before that and has only fell in love with him more and more, I really appreciated a lot of what they did with that series, because with the character, they made changes, but they did a really good job staying true to the core of the character and getting important points right. So I really like that. So that's what, because I gave that show an 89, I think. And I think that if that was like anybody else with the way the plot was and in some like bouncing around, I think that I wouldn't have given it as high of a grade, maybe like, more like an 80. But I think getting that character right was so important to me that I loved what they did there. So that he's at number 3, Daredevil, number 2, Gambit, number 1. Those have always been my like higher on my list, guys. But I will admit, like with Gambit, like being done wrong with Taylor Kitsch, with Gambit, like I feel like always being underutilized, even in the comics. I would get frustrated with that. Like, say, why am I going to invest in this character if you're just not going to utilize him as much? But now, we see him, and he gets his flowers in X-Men 97. We probably are going to get him back in the second season. He, Channing Tatum did what he did with the character, and I think in the comics he's getting utilized more and more. I feel like people our age are involved with this stuff, the properties more now, whether it's from comics or from movies and shows. And I feel like I'm not alone in that. Like Gambit needs to be part of the mix more. So he has risen back up for me where he was probably further down when we first started the show.
Very on brand. I love it all. I couldn't help but think, I was thinking of this like stupid line in my head when you were like, I love Moonlight, and like I only grew to love him more and more. And it's like the only thing that was playing in my mind when you were saying that was like, when the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's a conchu. That's stupid. Anyway, honorable mentions: Doctor Strange, Loki, Winter Soldier.
Nice.
Loki, great character, great redemption arc, kind of coming full circle there. And Doctor Strange, like really, like I wasn't crazy about the first movie. Thought he came off like a little bit like a dick, to be honest with you, and not as likable, like in the way that Tony Stark is. But Infinity War and Endgame takes it to another level. I'm like, this guy's awesome. He's the man. Then again, No Way Home, even though there's some issues about his motivations and what he can and can't do there, still very cool nonetheless.
Yeah, those are some good additions to the list, and definitely, obviously, the MCU influence is very apparent there. And then going over to DC, I'll be quicker here. Batman, a character who I've always cared about, but at the same time, like I've also had issues with at times because people are always
Hmm.
like Batman can't lose fights, this, that, and whatever. But I've grown to appreciate him a lot more. Just like even Pattinson, like I know people talk about his Bruce Wayne, but I love what he did as Batman, and just
Hmm.
other stuff I've seen in the comics, some animated movies which we've talked about on the show as well. Just how like Batman would not have been in my top 5 when this show first started. I don't think. Nightwing coming in at number 4, Deathstroke at 3. The big one for me, and this is the first time this list
This is big of you.
was the first time I admitted this to myself. Red Hood is my number 2, and Constantine is my number 1. And John Constantine is my favorite comic book character. Period. I've talked about how I think he is like the most objectively the most interesting comic book character, but I've realized like no, like he's my favorite. It's end of discussion because I do like that mythical stuff. He's a piece of shit and all this everything. I love that character. Red Hood probably wouldn't have lost that mantle if like they had written him better in the comics in recent years, but they haven't, so it's the frustrating point for me, and that's caused him to dip. But yeah, Red Hood, I love him. I still like probably my second favorite comic book character of all time, but Constantine has risen.
So yeah, my relationship with DC is much more superficial than Marvel. So it's like I'm going to be very much chalk here. But my number 5, Jim Gordon, got to get a non-powered hero character in there. I just went back and watched the Nolan Batman trilogies. And what's his name is so good in it. Why can't I think of his name? Gary Oldman does such a good job with it. And then who's the other guy that's coming in the Batman? Who was
I'm blanking on who else is new in the Batman.
not from the latest Matt Reeves Batman.
Are you talking about Colin Farrell as Penguin, or are you talking
No,
about
as
Gordon?
the guy who played Gordon there. I can't think of his name, but he
I'll find it.
also did a really good job. I like that character because
Jeffrey Wright.
balance out Thank you, Jeffrey Wright. Yeah. So much, everything could be about powers here, but I think the relationship building that he does with Batman, very, very cool stuff. Superman, just because he's Superman. Henry Cavill, great stuff. Catwoman, hey.
Yep.
You and I, big Anne Hathaway fan, so I love seeing that. Of course, Zoe Kravitz does a great, sexy job. Michelle Pfeiffer did a great, sexy job. So, Catwoman is pretty well represented, at least on the screen. Joker, again, just blown away by Heath Ledger's performance there. We could talk about whether Joaquin Phoenix in that Joker movie is actually a Joker movie at all, or they're just lifting the characters' names to capitalize on marketing and getting butts in the seats, and kudos to them. But I don't really think that's a real DC movie, so to speak. But number 1's Batman. Batman is the best.
Yeah,
give me Batfleck, give me Clooney with the bat nipples, give me Michael Keaton, who's a little bit quirky. I don't care. Like, they're all great.
I finally watched Birdman, by the way. I didn't talk about that in the recent Discharge Depots, but that was so fucking good. Like, that's something.
I was going to bring up Birdman when you were talking about 1917, because I think that was another movie that tried to do a continuous shot throughout, or at least give the appearance of that.
That was the one where I said I feel like I watched something recently that did that. Yes, that was it. Yes, it did something very similar to that. I love that movie. It was so good. I will absolutely rewatch that. I feel like anybody who enjoys comic book movies specifically, that's something that's very much worth watching.
Yes, for sure. So yeah, my top 5, Batman, all chalk there, but that's okay. Okay, that's our top 5s of all time here, but we do have 2 exit survey questions left about the podcast. Who's lost the podcast, Nick?
I feel like the people are losing now because we're stopping the show. I feel like you and I are losing because we're stopping the show.
That's fair.
But you could also argue that those are all the winners as well, for having been along for the ride with us. But yeah, in terms of losers, Wes, I mean, I feel like all I feel like the movies that we ripped along the way, Madam Web most recently, Dark Phoenix was another one. The ones where we were together, that like in ripping them, because there are some that we disagreed on, but when we were on the same page about ripping a movie, I think that you and I have similar views, but we also have different views. And I feel like if the Venn diagram comes together where we're in lockstep and it's like, this thing is shit, you lost. That's bad.
Yeah, that's not good. I might say the big loser here, who's lost the podcast. I don't know if it's the podcast necessarily, because I think his appearances were great, but our guy Casey Walsh, he may have lost the plot. You know,
Casey. Yeah,
love Casey, but I think he might have lost the plot.
he is no longer. I mean, he still does some stuff, and I feel like every time he tweets about like movie news stuff, he still gets a ton of like traction and everything. But yeah, that's he has definitely changed course.
Yeah, hey, we're gonna see him on like CNN one day or something like that. Maybe he'll be a political commentator, political scooper.
That would that'd be something if if that happened.
I think he hates that term scooper. I shouldn't have used that.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, he'll be fine. I think he'll live.
Yeah. But anyone else who lost a podcast? I mean, geez. What about like Spreaker or any of our gww.com? What are some of the other like places that carried our podcast that dropped us?
Yeah, well,
not dropped us, but like kind of like fell out of favor.
Yeah, well, I think there was like some that stopped. Like I know with Geeks Worldwide, they stopped like with their hosting the podcast. Some stuff like they just like things changed. I know wasn't there like Pop Goes the Culture? Wasn't that a website we were hosted on for a time?
Yeah, that was one of them. Yeah,
I think I stopped sending them stuff because I think I just stopped because I don't remember why. So yeah,
they're lost. They could have had another 150 episodes or whatever.
Yeah, it's probably halfway through where like I don't know how much it was people dropping. What I'm trying to say is I don't know how much people dropping us as much they stopped doing what they were doing in some things.
Well, they still lost, huh?
That's that I agree. Yeah.
And lastly, who won the podcast and why is it the people, Nick?
It's the people because they got to spend the time with us and obviously enjoy the different hate listening, listening alongside one of us or both of us, whatever their angle was, as Tim kind of laid out. I know you the hate listening. I'm sure there was some of that too, but just that mix. I think I'm really proud that we were able to provide that because I think while we never wanted to be something like First Take, obviously, but at the same time, we did want to debate each other on stuff. That is part of what this show's genesis was. I think I really appreciate Tim breaking it down in the manner in which he broke it down because that's kind of what my hope was for this show. Always was like we want to debate stuff, but we want to be genuine with it. As much as there were times where it's like original versus sequel, maybe it's like I like this movie too, but I got to rip it to shreds for a little bit right now. We were still honest about it, in both in our love and also in our poking of holes. So I'm really glad that we were able to provide that to the listener. So when you say the people, like that's why I would say the people.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of podcasts when I'm not recording podcasts. So I love just having something going on while I'm doing like menial tasks, like whether I'm like mowing the lawn or whatever, going for a walk, just have that on the background. So I think anyone who listened to our podcast in that moment, we were able to like maybe shine, be a little bit of a highlight during your work day or something like that. You're the real winners there,
Yeah, they are. So there is no question that they are the winners, and we appreciate you guys immensely. And I appreciate everybody. Like we joke about Casey, but I appreciate Casey coming on, Rossi,
of course,
all these different people who came on the show over time. Appreciate them. But I also am going to make the argument here. One last debate with you, Wes, that I was the winner of this show because this show, we started this in 2019. And this was like in my sports writing career, I was at a very frustrating point, taking a step back and was like, and I was like, oh, I'm trying to do entertainment writing as well. Then this seemed like the natural addition, and it was, and it came to me at such an important point where I needed it. I definitely needed it. And then it became a thing that I like, just, this is part of my life. This is what I do. This is, we changed. I think we started out on weekends, I think, when we did it with Tim originally. And then bounced around to ended up settling on Monday nights for a long time. But this was, you got married very early on in the show's history. I
Mhm.
met my wife in this show's history. We've gone through massive career growth in this show's history. You were also at my wedding. You were at my bachelor party.
Mhm.
Like, I feel like my view on cinema has evolved. I've now,
You're calling it cinema now.
so there you go. And then going from this to TLDR, and then now like trying to write my own comics, like none of that happens
Yeah.
without Change My Mind. So yes, the viewers, the listeners, you guys won, but I will debate you that I won number 2 at least after this, because
No,
there's
I think
you did for
you
me.
laid out a great path to victory here.
Thank
You
you.
know, I think that's a great point. Yeah, I didn't even think about taking the writing classes and making your own comic out of that, right? So it's like it is crazy to think the small steps that end up leading to the big boulder up the hill, or whatever
Yeah,
phrase I'm
no,
trying to use.
you're
there,
right.
but,
I never lose sight of that, and I'm saying all that to say, like, I win because I did this. I got to do this show with you and help me get
Oh.
to where I was at the end of all this. So thank you.
Well, this has been a lot of great stuff. I think we're also the big winners. You know, like we'll give the participation trophy to the listeners, right? But like really getting the hardware to us here,
Jokes on you guys.
because that's what this podcast is all about. It's about navel gazing and circle jerking. And I'm about to splooge, right? Because we are the big winners here. And like Nick said, we've gone through so many big life moments here, and to be able to have, like, at the very least, even if like the listeners aren't always there that we would have liked to see, we're not getting thousands upon thousands of listens. At the very least, it was always cool to just talk with my buddy for an hour about stuff that we're interested in, which is all you can really do. And especially like during the pandemic and everything. And then like, obviously we were, 30 minutes apart, maybe in Fall River or so, but with you moving up to New Hampshire, being 2 hours or whatever the distance is now, it's like, all right, well, we really won't see each other all that much anymore, but we always had the podcast to kind of go about doing it. So I was like, oh it's good. It's not like I'm losing a friend in a way, but in a way it kind of is.
Yeah, it's I've thought about that a lot recently, like just how I'm like, I need to make more of a point of texting him, like, because we're not gonna have this.
Yeah, likewise, I gotta get better texting too. I'm an awful texter.
Well, I'm not gonna go and debate that, but I'm also not gonna say that on here either.
No, you wouldn't be alone. I think everyone's in agreement, myself included.
You were the person that introduced me to. I'm gonna put you on blast a little bit here. You were the person that introduced me to this, and then I learned other people fucking do this, where they think they responded to, they read a text, think they responded to it, and they never respond to it, and then like days later or whatever, they're like, "Oh fuck, man, I thought I saw this and I didn't respond. I am so sorry." You are not alone. I want you to know that.
No, I know I'm not alone, but it's not bullshit. You know how often I would open up like a text thread to go be like, "Oh, I'll go text my buddy Justin," and then it's like there's a message in there that I just never hit send to, and it's like,
oh god, you typed it up too.
Oh yeah, just never. My fat thumbs just can't press send. Like,
oh, that's funny. That's yeah, but yeah,
but it's not funny. It's like it's kind of a jerk thing to do. So I got to do better about it.
Well, I'm you at least said it, and it's like, to me, it's like, okay, like cool. Now I know. It's just whatever. But it's just something that I've thought about a lot. Like it's in these last like 6 weeks. I feel like since you told me 7 weeks. It's just it's weird. It's very strange. I'm glad we've had a lot of fun with this, but it's also been like an emotional end.
Well, yeah, and I know we mentioned this to Rossi, but like everyone's got their schedules and everything. Christmas is a crazy time, but at some point in December, Christmas at the Kowloon, that seems like a safe halfway point for everyone, or at least for you and me. We're really on the outskirts.
Yes, 100%. I've still never been to the Kowloon. I missed when we went to the Kowloon previously.
That's right. Yeah,
so I definitely would like to do that 100%.
You got to be tough. Those Mai Tais catch up to you. They're real sweet.
Oh boy.
Real good there. But that does it for the Change My Mind exit survey. But we have one last segment to get to. Get your tickets because the train is leaving the station for good.
Choo-choo, bitches.
All right, Nick, what'd you watch this weekend?
So, as I mentioned, the missus and I did a Hunger Games rewatch. Actually, she hadn't seen the finale of
Mhm.
that whole saga, but we did a marathon of that. Did not watch the prequel. Seeing what the prequel was, I don't know how interested I'm in it. It's about President Snow. It's I don't know, like he's not a bad
Yeah.
guy
Oh,
who it's like,
yeah.
oh, I like that bad guy. He's cool. Like, no, he's a piece of shit. But read and rewatched it, and amazing how well those movies age. Again, I mentioned like Liam Hemsworth, like watching that, thinking about him being the Witcher, I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. But also we went and saw Blink Twice, which is the you mentioned Zoe Kravitz. She directed and I believe co-wrote, if not wrote solo, this movie.
Is
Channing
this with
Tatum.
Channing Tatum? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Channing Tatum is one of the stars in it. If you like psychological thrillers, absolutely recommend. Has a
Okay.
ton of twists in it. And one of the last ones too is just very much like didn't see that coming, and really like a nice icing on the cake for the movie. So if you like psych thrillers, go watch Blink Twice.
All right. I'm gonna put that up there. So that's in theaters now.
It is in theaters right now. Yes.
I might wait until that comes out
I think
because that might be another real winner of the podcast is all the money that we're saving not going to the theater every week or every other week. Because like unlike some of our other Dorkshire Gooniverse counterparts, we don't get promotional screeners or invited out to premieres or anything like that.
Nope.
We're just shelling out the money with the rest of the general public. So
Yep.
that'll be nice. But yeah, I will check that out. I love a good psychological thriller. I mentioned this already. I watched Horizon and American Saga Part 1 on Max, the Kevin Costner joint project. He's like pouring in all of his money. Had a horrible theater stay. It was very short lived. It was like, I think the second part was already supposed to come out already. They're supposed to come out like a couple weeks apart from each other. So it was supposed to be like a summer event to go spend 9 hours in a movie theater. But I don't think that's going out to plan. But this movie's really good. Like if you do have 3 hours to kill and you are interested in like a Western style American frontier kind of like Revenant meets Dances with Wolves. It's a good movie. Like there's interesting characters in there. There's pretty good character actors. I'm trying to think who was in there that jumped out at me. Sam Worthington plays a general. Kevin Costner obviously does. Luke Wilson's in that, which is very surprising to me. He does a good job. But I would check that out. Again, very lengthy. You might get bored through it. I don't blame you. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty compelling.
I might give it a look, but it's probably going to be way on my back burner right now because I'm watching Yellowstone currently, which is another show that could have been mentioned earlier in the program. And Mrs. and I are working through that right now. Really been enjoying Yellowstone. Obviously, like that had a spinoff, like rave reviews and everything.
I haven't seen that, but I imagine it's essentially the same thing.
Yellowstone is set in modern times.
Oh, really? Okay, so like, what's the prequel? Like 1884 or whatever?
85, yeah.
Yeah, so that's like essentially the same thing. This is like the 1840s, I think.
Gotcha. So there you go. Yeah. So it's like 1885, I think, is like how Yellowstone's like the things that are in Yellowstone, like how they became to be, is 1885, like originally. So
gotcha. Okay.
So you may want to watch Yellowstone, but you probably don't need to waste your time on 1885.
Okay. I'm a big Taylor Sheridan fan, so probably would like that. Okay. It seems weird that we had like the emotional look back with the exit survey questions, and then we just go right back to the Discharge Depot and be like, yeah, so what'd you watch this weekend?
That's what the show is, though, in general. So I'm going to say my final piece, Wes. I know you always send us off, so I will let you have those honors, but I just want to say, again, thank you to the listeners for being with us throughout the entirety of the show. For those who came on later on and then checked us out more later, thank you as well. Thank you to all the people. Thank you to Tim, specifically Weisberg, because the show doesn't exist without him at the jump, because he gave us like a great start at WBSM. Thank you to all the people who were guests along the way in the show. Thanks to the rest of the DSG that really made a big difference, I think, for us, like especially when that first started in legitimizing us and in bringing in listeners. And then last but not least, thank you, Wes, like for all the time that you put in the show. Thank you to Julia as well for letting you sacrifice your Mondays with me all the time.
Sure.
But I feel like doing this show with you has helped me grow a lot as a person. And like you said, it's also helped, like it's been a lot of fun along the way, just chatting with my buddy about this. And now we have memories within this show, but also outside of this show because of everything we did for Change My Mind.
Yeah, I mean, I echo everything that you said right there. I think thank you for I think it's interesting. Like, thanks so much to everyone who listened to us, maybe like who stuck through the early rocky roads of the podcast. So as we like try to figure things out of like how's everything going to work together? How are we going to pick up off of each other's cues so we're not talking over each other? When to let go of things, when to push things, and then things like the whole dance of podcasting with a host, or just broadcasting, I guess, with a host, is really interesting. So I'm very appreciative of Nick for doing that dance for 5 years. But also it's like for putting up with me too. Cause I can be moody. I can wear my emotions on my sleeve, and Nick takes it all in stride. And doesn't affect him. He's got, like, I joke that he's a robot, but that's like in the best possible way. The guy's like steel. He's nails, on the mound. I'm not so sure, but definitely in the podcast sphere. You may be. I've never seen you. I can't vouch for it. But no, so I think, just like we've said before, I think we've grown a lot through this podcast. Hopefully we've learned a little bit about ourselves along the way, and we'll take that and we'll move it forward, and then we're going to repackage it and then bring it back for the original versus sequel podcast coming to you in 2026.
There you go.
Also, thank you to this guy who made this grunt sounder, which I'm not sure if it actually makes in the audio version at all during the podcast, or people listen to it.
It depends on how it comes through. Sometimes it does. Oh, and this is it. We're letting the people go on this. On the grunt.
Yeah. Because we're not going to be back at the same bat time in the same bat place. Like it's the end. This is it. It's over.